sure to focus on the right target here. He's going to be jumping forward. Chicken wants him. Chicken gets him, but Suijay has what it takes to take him down with a Kraken pushing, with Immortals having 2 members to 1. This could actually be game, Fuji.
They're going to try to keep Max from being able to get back. If they get the ace here, they're going to get all the region they need to push, and this Kraken's going in. That's game, Jackson. The Kraken steal. It came from Lyra. When you have a banner, when you have Ion Cannon to be able to drop, you have a gauntlet, you have every tool in your arsenal to secure this Kraken. Major, major mistakes. A devastating defeat here for Hammers.
Honestly, I think a lot of pundits in the Vainglory community were probably saying this match was going to be one of the closer ones because both teams were coming in with the situation they were with their rosters. Look at game number 1. I mean, they were so right. It went all the way, came down to a Kraken steal. Fuji, if this is what the series has in store for us, I can't wait to see game number 2.
I mean, what a risky play by Hammers to say we're actually going to go in a matchup of the carries. We're going to put all of our eggs in the chicken basket, if you will, and we're going to put it up against Zia, who's actually the strongest member of Immortals right now, the one they're pegging to carry the team. So perhaps a questionable draft pattern, but it is just game 1. It's a best of 5, testing the waters, seeing what Chicken's capable of. It makes it really exciting, though, because everyone's saying Hammers, Hammers, guys, T-Tigers, king of the jungle. But Immortals had a different response.
It is just, I mean, ridiculous how much that live buff seems to matter for Immortals. I mean, Dienzio, Immortals, how many wins did they get in the main season, right? Like, they really struggled. Hammers, as a team, one of the top ones. Yet Immortals comes in and they just play out of their minds in game number 1. They got to keep it going, though. After a game like that, fatigue can set in. You can really just hard reset if you're not careful to keep your mentality going between games heading into the next one. So, I mean, one thing I will say, we were talking about Scarf a little bit. They were talking about it on the desk. Yeah. I don't think you give that to Dienzio again.
I mean, Scarf is what took Dienzio during Worlds almost to reverse sweeping TSM to get into the finals. It's a big pick for them. Obviously pretty hard to deal with here.
Man, incredible stuff coming out of them. I can't wait to hear what our analysts think. Fuji, let's hand it on over.
Thank you very much, guys. Honestly, reminiscent of the first game between Fnatic and Cyclone, right? Absolute bloodbath down to the wire. And at this point, you can throw away your seeding because this is level pegging. And I mean, how many times did Dienzio clutch fights that were surely already lost?
Yeah, the healing coming out from the Eve of Harvest, you throw that on with the Dragon's Breath, it just does an absurd amount of sustain for him. And of course, fighting next to that Crystal Sentry was also just incredibly smart decision-making from Immortals, and it was what allowed them to stay so close in this game.
I mean, Flash, who was the standout player? Was it Dienzio carrying this, or was this a full team effort?
It honestly was Dienzio, but the team as a whole played super, super coordinated. A lot better than what I'm sure a lot of people were expecting, and just their team fighting and that Kraken steal at the end was absolutely immaculate.
Yeah, and I mean, 31.5 minutes as well. That is a long game in the grand scheme of things. We mentioned beforehand, you know, NA much more aggressive teams. Is it going to be quicker? Apparently not, because that one was a true slugfest. But looking towards the next game, what do Hammers have to change to get back into this one? Because so many times it felt like they were about to win a fight. They were about to take a Kraken, for example, that got stolen away by a Lyra towards the end. Like, where were they going wrong there?
I mean, it was really just a matter of the teams being so even that the small little difference was what ended up winning the game. I mean, Lyra stealing that Kraken, that's basically a coin flip on that team fight. Because the Kraken got stolen, the regen that just a little bit came through before, you know, it got canceled out by damage, but just that little bit of regen was enough for Immortals to be able to then take that fight.
All right, so we'll play this replay as well. Flash, do you want to run us through this fight?
So they're obviously still pretty even at this point in time and pretty healthy going into it. It was a pretty good gauntlet coming out, and they were able to even stun Dienzio on the gauntlet.
Fortified health, though.
But the fortified health and just the health regeneration from the Eve of Harvest did wonders for him, kept him alive long enough to take Chicken out, and ultimately they were able to at least go even in this team fight.
Yeah, and I mean, Arden saving the day there at the end, Max Green keeping T-Tigers alive, but it meant without that Baron available, they couldn't push for much more. They couldn't take any advantages off it. And that I feel like that was the crux of this entire game, was every time Hammers got something, they couldn't take too much of an advantage off the back of it.
And I mean, the best example of that was actually throughout the early to mid stages of the game, the gauntlets from Max Green. I was super, super impressed by his Arden play. He was dropping gauntlets in incredible positions, constantly either splitting up hammers, or splitting up Immortals, or catching someone with the stun, but then they weren't able to actually find the kill at the end of the day. Like Dienzio, so many times, again, as we mentioned, was able to get out of the gauntlet and turn fights around.
Honestly, Dienzio, the land buff is coming into play right here. The amount of times that guy has just flipped things on his head, and that clip that we just saw was like a perfect example where you can barely see him underneath the pile of health bars that are trying to finish him off. Somehow survived long enough, finishes off the Baron on the enemy team, and we are going to jump into the draft. Koshka and Finn, the bans once again, and Lyra first picked for Immortals.
Nothing too different. Still, Hammers needs to respect the ability for Immortals to take a game late and play to scale. I really think that either picking a comp that can either do more upfront damage to Scarf, because Grumpjaw was played as more of a utility role in that last game, where he's eating someone, trying to make a fight a 2v3 for as long as possible and spitting them back out into the gauntlet. But allowing Immortals to get a hero that can regenerate so much health from that, I don't see Hammers letting that happen again.
Well, they're going to go ahead and ban away the glaive, so we will have at least something different in this draft, because they started it off almost identical to game number 1. But one of the actually adaptations I saw from T-Tigers on this Grumpjaw is typically when we see that sort of utility build path, it's Storm Crown into the Aftershock. He got the Stormguard banner, never actually finished the Storm Crown because he just needed to get that damage utility out as quickly as possible. So I actually really like that adaptation. It's something we only saw once or twice during the regular season from anyone in Vainglory 8.
Absolutely. And now, with a lot of melee being banned away from this game, what are we expecting for the final 4 picks, Flash?
It's got to be ranged, obviously. I think that they're going to try and get something that goes in a little bit harder. Maybe even Ringo here. Immortals last game, Vaynes didn't get his fourth defensive item, until almost 25, 27 minutes in the game. I think that if Hammers would have acknowledged the fact that Vaynes almost had no armor and focused him down at the start of the fights, they could have gone a lot differently. If they would have tried to just eat Scarf, take out the support first, the fights could have been flipped completely on their heads, and maybe Hammers could have taken the win.
Well, it looks like Hammers are wanting a longer game once again with that Baron locked in. Obviously, Baron, kind of a hyper carry towards the later stages. Once you've got all 6 of your items, that's when you're really going to just decimate entire teams. What would you expect Hammers to kind of round out this composition with?
I mean, there's a lot of different options. It depends on if they, again, do you want the Grumpjaw in the jungle position or as the captain. They could very likely still just go for that exact same composition, maybe feeling like they were so close to being able to pull off the win that they've just gameplay mistakes that they can fix that will get them the win. But against the Gwen, I think it's both a good and a bad answer. It's good because, you know, the Skedaddle can get her out of a lot of bad situations, but she doesn't have the lifesteal that Scarf does in order to survive these fights like we saw in game 1.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Scarf has made it all the way through the draft so far. He's not been banned away or picked away, and it'll be curious to see whether, you know, we see that Scarf come out. It seems unlikely at this very late stage of the draft. But the Gwen going to be the lock-in, and only 10 seconds left for Immortal. They're going to lock in the Blackfeather.
It's obviously going to be a CP Blackfeather coming out of the jungle. Pairing that with Lyra, I think, works really well. Lyra can just continuously heal Blackfeather while he pokes from a distance. With that on point, and if they just play it really patiently in Siege, passively, ultimately, if Hammers doesn't get something that can sustain or at least force an engagement, I think that they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see what they do decide to grab for this last pick, and it will be the Arden, so the exact same composition. Normally we say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but it didn't get the win, so is this going to be enough? Is the gameplay fixes that they are obviously going to hope to make going to be enough for Immortals?
Yeah, but different composition coming out this time from Immortals. So while we've got one of the same compositions, it's a different matchup, all things considered. Just quickly then, who do we think's won the draft? We'll start with you, Flash.
I still got to give it to Hammers. Baron's super strong up in the lane, hyper carry. I think that if Hammers plays it in more of a fashion where they are hyper farming Chicken and giving Chicken the jungle to get him enough ahead, that they can ultimately take this.
Yeah, I think that without having the heavy sustain, rapid sustain, I should say, from the Scarf, I just don't know if Immortals are going to be able to survive that engagements that were coming out.
All right, well, we'll see whether that's going to be the case. Immortals managed to take the first one. We'll see if they can snowball that into a 2-0. But it's time to hand it over to AJ and Fuji.
Alrighty, game number 2 coming up, guys. Are Immortals going to be able to kill the same bird with 2 different stones?
I mean, maybe
Right?
Perhaps only one page in their playbook, or just looking for a redo. They're like, you know what? It was this close. They don't have Scarf this time, so we got it.
I mean, the fact that there is no Scarf is a big deal. You heard the analyst talking about it. Bacon just said, you know, they don't have that hero with the rapid sustain. The interesting difference for me, though, is like Black Feather doesn't have sustain, but he has a lot of preventative measures, right? Like he can use Rose Offensive to dodge a lot of damage. He can use On Point to shield a lot of the damage that's going to be coming through. So there is one person who can kind of deal with Baron, potentially, just in terms of that raw damage output.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think through the early game, we'll see some of that pressure coming out, but CP Blackfeather, like, you don't build a lot of defense on this hero, so you got to be careful. Grumjaw's early game damage, but even Baron with this, you know, the new change in this patch, he gets double shots. It's dangerous if you get jumped on.
All right, guys, game number 2, Immortals versus Hammers. Immortals are 1 game up in the series after an incredible opening performance. That match was intense, going all the way to like 27 minutes. Are we going to see another one like that? Up in the lane, Suijay has now transitioned into this captain position. Vayne's back in the jungle.
Yeah, I definitely think this is it's going to be a little bit of a different feel, but overall pretty similar. Each team is going to be looking to kind of get through the first couple of minutes fairly safely, but the big difference, Immortals, they don't really have that scaling composition for the late game. They're going to try to get this Gwen, this Lyra poke off the ground. They're going to be coming up with Blackfeather, looking for trades because they haven't Sigil, because they have that barrier. Their trades are going to be superior. A lot of eyes on Max Green and how he can use this Vanguard to really just defer a lot of this early game damage.
All right, King of the Jungle yet again, trying to make the play to take the Treant. Vaynes, oh man, that was close, but T-Tigers picks up the Treant. It's going to be a nice little treat for him. Let's look back towards the lane, though. You can see Dienzio and Suijay. They've got a lot of poke damage here. Max Green, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go for a really heavy defense build path like he did last game. Just because you got to deal with the fact that poke's coming out.
No, and very interesting. We actually see the Protector contract coming through. I'm a pretty big fan of this contract if you're playing a sustain roam in lane, but it's tough, right? Because with Sigil coming out, yes, the Protector contract's going to help you with a little bit of damage, but if you take too much, you're not going to be able to hang around. So it's kind of a risky early game maneuver where they want to try to get some damage down without taking any in return. It's a lot on Suijay, though. Like, how much poke is he able to do as T-Tigers looks for an invade?
Yeah, and he does find Vaynes. Look at that damage already. Vaynes has to back away immediately. With both the laners sitting up with their captains in lane, obviously no one's really there to back Vaynes up. So T-Tigers does have the ability to move up and try and find some picks early on here. And Vaynes not going to commit for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you come up to lane, you sit there for just a second just to see, but not wasting time, right? Like, effective time used is so important in Vainglory. You only have a few minutes through the early game before the 4-minute mark hits, before those Crystal Sentries come online. So you want to get back, you want to shop, you want to get your items online and get out on the map.
That's a 2-minute 40 tension bow coming in before Dienzio even had boots. That's pretty early.
That's a bit early. I actually, and something to note even is just how Hammers are and how Immortals, like, how are they sharing farm? T-Tiger's getting a lot of solo. He gets it. That's important. 1v2 trade.
Even
dancing
able to
around.
force him back. I mean that's ridiculous, right? Like, he's
Flexing
just 1
his grump
versus 2.
muscles.
He's going to find the front camps as well. T-Tigers is definitely having a very convincing game in the jungle so far. He's not massively ahead in terms of raw creep numbers over Vaynes, but in terms of the map pressure he is exerting, he pulled Suijay down from the lane for a while. Now look at the position that the wave is up in the lane, right? Like, very far push towards Immortals. There's certainly some effects that are happening because of T-Tigers and his aggression.
Well, and Hammers is feeling obviously a lot safer pushing this wave forward because the afterburn threat is not there, right? And that's such an important thing for Chicken on Baron, just to be able to farm a little bit more safely without the gank potential being as strong. Vanguard, such a huge boost being able to get Baron out of those sticky situations. But I love it. I love T-Tigers. This is the T-Tigers we talked about coming into the tournament, controlling the jungle, controlling the pace of the game, picking up those elders, picking up the front doubles, stealing in a 1v2 the regen. He's checking off a to-do list right now.
So one thing I'm curious about here, Fuji, obviously Tension Bow, great item on Gwen. You know, we've talked about in previous games. It makes sense. But in this game, with the composition that they have not really been looking for any fights early. Because of how much power that item gives you early on, is it maybe more sensible to go for something like a Sorrow Blade if you know you're not going to be fighting until later?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. We have to kind of wait and see. We have to let Immortals kind of answer that, right? Because at this point, with T-Tigers hitting level 6, Hammers is looking to make the first move. And this Tension Bow might just be to kind of stave off some of that early aggression. Because if you do take a Tension Bow proc this early, even tanky, it's gonna deter them.
Oh,
there we go.
Dienzio, he gets eaten. He actually used Skedaddle there, but it doesn't work. Dienzio going to be taken down. First blood going to Hammers.
What a great rotation coming from Hammers there, too. They actually swing up through the Tri-Bush because Immortals decided to go home. They put Vision down. Now they have forward pressure. They have priority on the front camps if they want to take it, and they're just keeping Immortals at this turret. This is not what you want out of this kind of composition with Gwen. You want it with Lyra be putting that pressure on. You want to be the one setting up those rotations, so very smart movement here by Hammers.
Do you think maybe it would have made more sense for Suijay to invest a bit more money in scout traps, not just flares? Because right now, their vision is all based on, like, okay, right now I'm going to check this bush, but then 5 seconds later, they could be there. And that allows Hammers to rotate all the way up through the enemy tri-bush. I mean, they went the long way around to pick up Dienzio there.
Yeah, I definitely think scouts work really well, especially, oh, we are looking for a little bit of action.
That's a bulwark coming out of Suijay, but he's still taking a lot of damage. T-Tigers finds another stuff. This guy is going to be full all day. Doesn't need to eat his next meal. Man, Hammers pushing the tempo here.
Man, if he keeps getting this many meals in his stomach, he may not be as hangry anymore, but they're going for it.
Dienzio is doing some good damage on the T-Tigers here, but with the fountain available for Hammers, not for Immortals, it does mean that Hammers can probably keep some aggression going here. Dienzio wants T-Tigers. That is a lot of damage coming out of the Tension Bow. This is what they need to be doing, really. They need to be the ones initiating some of these fights.
Especially if some of the extra defensive stacks from Grumpjaw fall down. It's a great time to time your Tension Bow proc into Grumpjaw so he takes as much damage as possible. But Hammers has to be careful. Their fountain's on cooldown. Immortals knows this. They have fountain advantage. Shatterglass finished for this Black Feather. A lot of damage poke potential now. This is Immortals' power spike period. They're trying to find something. I don't really agree with these portal homes, though. Every single time you port home with this Gwen Lyra, it's an advantage, in my opinion, for Hammers, because that means Baron gets to go home. He gets the shop, and he's slow. He doesn't like going all the way back to that shop. T-Tigers doing... Even the Vanguard, it's like, just get him back onto the map. Let's go. But, you know, so much credit goes to T-Tigers here for the amount of jungle pressure and control that he's having. It's really forcing Immortals back.
Honestly, I feel like T-Tigers is getting in Immortals' heads a little bit right now. You've got to know the strengths of your composition. I'm sure Suijay does. But Immortals aren't really playing to those right now, and that is building a big advantage for Hammers here. They're not sitting in much of a gold lead, but on Manon, they're doing so good. Chicken jumps in, though. What are you doing, Chicken? Dienzio turns for the kill. Tigers does pick up the turret in the background, eating, actually, I believe, Vayne's there, but now he's got to be a little bit careful. Vayne's trying to dive in. T-Tigers backs out of there. It's going to be a turret traded for a kill. Can Immortals maybe get a turret here?
I definitely think they can put a ton of pressure. The wave clear is just okay. Tigers has to go in deep for it. That was a really great angle, though.
That was so much damage coming in from the dash out of Grumpjaw. That dissuades Immortals from going for more. I think Solo, that play coming in from T-Tigers, stopped that push in its tracks.
Yeah, that was super important. Chicken made a major mistake. You cannot jump in that deep. You're not that strong yet. Your double punch isn't really going to actually kill anybody, so questions have to be asked once again. A lot of eyes on Chicken to be able to perform in this carry role. T-Tigers enabling, getting those leads, but also having to save some of the deficits when we see some of those mistakes. So they did get the first turret, though. We really need to highlight this. The map is now even more open than it was before. This allows Hammers to continue to apply pressure. The gold is basically even here, so no major gains. But this kind of objective control now, they can start looking for gold mine, an important pivot for the match.
This can really be a situation that quickly scales out of control for Suijay. I want to talk about his items. If he continues to buy... No! Not quite going to happen. If Suijay continues to buy this many flares, right, which he has to do, because they've already lost the turret and they need to know where the pick potential is coming from. he's going to be slowing down and getting his other items.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to take the risk here. You buy a scout trap, you put it someplace you think they might not notice it, and you try and utilize that to get like 3 flares worth of vision, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to be careful about bleeding out here gold-wise.
I mean, you also have Lyra's portal, right? So, I mean, you get 1 scout down, you use that to be able to maneuver around the map safely, still control a little bit of your jungle. You know, if stuff kind of gets a little scary, you just portal out, it's okay. The cooldown isn't superior. Like, it's not super necessary because going in onto Baron is not always successful at this point in the game. They'll be looking for it a little bit later.
Ooh, Tigers, he wanted something there.
Lyra using that home portal to get out of there. But I completely agree. I do think early game, like, you know, over-investment in flares here. You have Imperial Sigil. Like, if you're not using it to harass, use it for vision. Just let it sit in the bush till it times out.
All right, well, now Immortals do know where Hammers are because Hammers has pushed all the way up to the turret. So this is a good situation for them to maybe find some poke damage, find some kind of engage. They're only a little bit behind gold, about 1,000 right now. That is not something that, you know, Immortals can't come back from. But when you push up the wave like this, you know, looking at where they are right now, I'm not sure they want to push the wave. I feel like freezing it by the turret would have made more sense. Sweet J does get jumped on. T-Tigers actually going to have his stuff blocked there. Dienzio gets out of the gauntlet. He's trying to turn around the damage, but he goes through the portal. That's a bad situation at the end. T-Tigers looking for more with Chicken finding the kill. Hammers. This is a very convincing game from them so far.
Max. Okay, there we go. I was about to say first clean turret engage we've actually seen from Hammers where they get in and they get the objective and they get out with all of their lives. So a bit of learning here happening with the team. That's what we like to see in a best-of-5 series. Adaptation, changing the game a little bit, testing. Now they're pulling back, playing right on that line. I like what I see. We also saw the fact that they had a bit of a timing difference with these infusions, so that's what they were waiting for. They played a little bit of passive, even with T-Tigers controlling the jungle, but once they got those infusions, they made the play. I mean, T-Tigers was there like 3 or 4 seconds before Chicken even arrived.
I really like the fact that Chicken is being bold this game. You know, sometimes it's not panning out for him, but he's trying to back T-Tigers up, and when you've got a player like T-Tigers who is so aggressive, who's so dominant, you want to try and support him in the plays that he is making. Immortals look a little bit different this game, obviously. They don't have someone like the Scarf who can stay so safe in the fights. This is giving Hammers a lot of opportunities. I think this is more like the Baron play that you want to see, right? Like, he's dominating early on as well.
They're looking for Chicken.
Yeah, he actually wants to go right onto the back line here. This is a smart play from Immortals. They're trying to set things up. Chicken, he's looking for the turnaround. Dienzio's going to go down. Veins can't kill Chicken. He's got some good damage, but it's just not going to be enough. T-Tigers looking for the turnaround. Burst is huge, but Veins, with that on point, going to buy some time for his teammate to get away. Suijay not going to be going down as well, unless he runs into a rotate out of Hammers here. But again, Hammers finding great fight after great fight.
Yeah, I mean, we also see a bit of an itemization difference coming out here as well. We saw an earlier Atlas pickup for Suigeneris, so he's able to dive and get the Atlas onto Grumpjaw, get it on the Baron. So it is going to turn a lot of that early game damage down. Once again, Baron's only level 9. It's only 12 minutes into the game. There's still a lot of Vainglory to be played in this match too. Baron wants to get 3-4 offensive items. He wants to max that ult out so he has the range. It's going to make it a lot harder, but the double Atlas priority coming from Immortals. Chicken is the target. Once again, all the eggs in the same basket.
Chicken is the target, but when is Dienzio going to be able to deal with T-Tigers, right? Because that's the problem. Veins can go in. He can probably pretty easily get an Atlas down onto Chicken, or at least force the reflex block. Oh, T-Tigers talking about dealing with him. He's caught out a little bit right now. Baron going to be using that ultimate Gauntlet coming down as well. They popped that Crucible quite early on the side of Immortals. Dienzio might not have a good answer to this one. The fountain going across for both teams. Veins just buying some space again. Chicken now got to think about getting out of here. That's actually the portal forwards. If Sweet J and Immortals, they want to go in here, but they've got a turret to contend with. Veins, does he have another on point sometime soon? He's looking for Chicken. He's taking it. Oh, whoa! That was so close. Chicken, he's going to back away. Turret for Immortals. That was more like it, but why did that fight happen, Fuji?
So essentially what we're seeing is just an out-sustain from Immortals. When we don't have the correct engage, when we don't have Grumpjaw ult landing the same time, that when everything isn't going according to plan for Hammers, Immortals just backs up a little bit, they throw the sigil down, they get their health back, and we see that continuous sustain. Blackfeather at level 11, able to poke out this Baron heavily. Like, Chicken is lucky that he survived that. Barely surviving that, but they get the turret. Once again, a gold kind of swing a little bit back towards Immortals. They're still not in the lead, but this is what they need, even playing from behind. That's the momentum they're looking for.
That was largely contingent on T-Tigers being a little bit too far out of position at the beginning of the fight, though. I feel like if Immortals try and pick a fair fight right now, different story. I mean, for goodness sakes, Chicken, he's got 3 items here. He had it before 14 minutes as a Baron. That is some scary stuff. You've got to be very careful. And now T-Tigers is with his team, Hammers, trying to play safe and smart, maybe look for that engagement in a position that's going to work a bit better for them this time.
Yeah, but this was a good angle for Hammers, basically. They weren't wanting to team fight, but they're just kind of daring Immortals. If you're going to drop into our jungle, we're going to take the fight. We have the infusion advantage, have the positional advantage. Fusion's lining up. Ion Cannon comes out. We're good, ready to go.
You can see Hammers wants another fight here. Vayne's actually popping that Rose defensive just to back up a little bit, but Hammers doesn't fully commit. Ion Cannon, not the most impactful skill in these fights. It's a bit of extra damage on the top. T-Tigers, he wants to go in, though. Look at this, Vayne's directly onto Chicken. He committed to this so quickly. Chicken is very low right now. So's T-Tigers. D'Enzio, he wants Chicken. He went through the gauntlet, but he might have been too deep. Vayne's too far away, couldn't get back into the fight. D'Enzio should just have killed T-Tigers in that one. Vaynes, can he do cleanup duty here, though? That's the question. Sweet J
Vaynes can
wants
win
to
this.
make it happen. Vaynes, he's got the damage. He's looking for more. T-Tigers slowed up by the Principal Arcanum and the on-point. Vaynes is going to clean up both the important kills onto Hammers. That fight was weird, Fuji. Very back and forth, but Immortals takes it.
We talked about the fact Hammers needs all of their cooldowns to be able to win against Immortals. The sustain is too much. We saw Ion Cannon going out early. We saw abilities using early. We saw Chicken getting dove in the back line while Grumpjaw dives Gwen. I actually think that was a big mistake from Tigers. She's inconsequential. You get the Atlas off, you turn around, you protect your Baron, because without him, you are never going to take down this Blackfeather and this Lyra combo.
We got to talk about the Blackfeather as well in a second, although Kraken picked up here by Immortals. Crystal Blackfeather, it's not something we actually saw a ton of in the Vainglory 8 season. On Update 2.4, are we going to see some more of it? Because it's been making a huge impact in this game. It's so good against these hyper carries. It can just get there. It can make these fights.
Well, it's specifically also very good against a carry like a Chicken who's kind of testing the waters right now with his team. You can see T-Tigers doing so much early game control. They're trying to pass the baton. They're saying we control the early game, we take the first objectives. Here you go, Chicken, let's go. And they're just not finding those team fights.
All right, Kraken push coming out here from Immortals. What is Hammers going to do? What is their answer? Are they going to try and play around that third turret like they did last time? Are they going to go in sooner? T-Tigers certainly isn't really committing right now, and he's starting to take some fairly serious poke damage. This could be a bad situation for Hammers because now, can they even turn around on this third turret before it goes down? T-Tigers is already so low.
Hammers should be able to defend here. Unless Immortals goes for a dive, I think they're just going to use their abilities for a defensive measure. They want to kill the Kraken. I don't think anybody really wants to team fight right now.
All right, well, it is going to be Immortals backing away. They've given up on that Kraken push after taking 2 turrets without losing anyone. I mean, that is a nice gold swing for Immortals. You can see they're actually in a gold lead position now, where they weren't for quite some time. Harris, I mean, they still have the kill lead. This is definitely a game where Immortals found a power spike and really ran with it.
Well, and one of the reasons why we're also seeing Vaynes being so effective is just there's no defense being prioritized towards him from Grumpjaw. So while, yes, a tanky hero, Vaynes is still able to just poke the front line. He doesn't have to find Chicken every time if he doesn't want to. He can just continue putting damage into the front line, letting Zio do the same. But once again, like looking at the items, Chicken, he's only 3 offensive. He's got armor. I don't actually agree with this. He needs to be a harder late-game carry, and if he only has those 3 items, the Vaynes is just trading better.
Chicken's damage hasn't changed in the last 4 minutes. It was 14 minutes when I was like, man, this guy's on fire. He's got 3 offensive items already, but now he's in the same spot. And we've already seen he can't instantly kill Vaynes because Vaynes is too mobile, can dodge a lot of that damage. So I agree with you. He's got to maybe get some more damage soon. He's sitting on 800 gold. Maybe after he farms a little bit more, he picks something else up. But he's already committed to this armor, right? So, like, where's he going?
I mean, honestly, it kind of shows that maybe he isn't that confident in his ability for T-Tigers and Max to protect him because Gwen really isn't getting a lot of time with Baron.
T-Tigers want to go in yet again. That was a great gauntlet by some time where D'Enzio's not doing the damage, but Vaynes on the back line is pressuring Chicken down. D'Enzio, he's got to be careful, jumping in the middle of the fight again. Not going to pan out too well here. Vaynes has got some serious AoE, though. We've seen him turn fights like this around. Goes to the portal! That was magical. Vaynes tries to look for Chicken. He's so so close, but he doesn't quite find it.
Oh, the
Fleejay
sigil.
picks up the kill, but now he is in a bad situation. T-Tigers coming in with the burst. It is an ace for Hammers. I guess they didn't need much more damage on Chicken.
I mean, even if the communication was slightly crisper from Immortals, I actually think they could have won the fight if the sigil went down and gave the healing it needed to Blackfeather with the on point, the barrier coming out. They could have made so many plays, but Immortals actually just making a lot of mistakes. Their Atlas is not being used in enough of a sequential manner on Chicken, so it slowed him down a little bit, but he was still able to ramp up, and Zio just kind of mispositioned and getting too close to this Baron thinking they can just delete him.
Zio has 0 kills right now. Just gotta point that out, right? Like, this is a 20-minute game. He's on a carry Gwen. He has 0 kills and also only 2 assists. Like, this
The
guy,
0, I guess.
Oh, God. I mean, what I will say, though, is that he's making an impact very indirectly, right? Like, he is baiting a lot, and Vanes is really the one doing the work. Plus, he is actually getting some poke down. He is forcing these very hard commits out of Hammers because of Skedaddle. You know, you've really got to commit more than you, on average, would to a carry. But now with this push coming in, this Kraken is starting to knock on the door of Immortals. What is their response going to be?
I mean, they have to play this incredibly carefully. I actually think with the zoning tools of Gauntlet and Ion Cannon, Hammers can siege here pretty carefully, or pretty successfully. It's just, they have a bit of a better sieging comp, and Immortals, they don't really kill Kraken very well, but where's the shot call coming from with Hammers right now, right? Like, who is going to make the call? Do we go in? Do we dive? Once this turret gets around to 10 to 15%, they're either going to go or they're going to leave.
They're relying a lot on dodging. He's on points as well. Chicken is taking some turret damage, but he does find it. Now, is the turnaround going to come in? Immortals, oh, Dienzio's stunned up there. T-Tigers trying to jump on the back line. Good Crucible out of Immortals. There are the fountains, though. Chicken, he wants Dienzio. He picks him up. Vanes, I don't know if he's going to be able to turn this one around this time. Kraken's still healthy. Hammers, they could go for a game end here, Fuji. It is possible with the Kraken where it is right now. Vanes, he's not landing the on points. He's not finding the damage he needs to, but the turret does actually pick up a kill there. On to one of the members here. Can they find more Immortals? They're going to just barely clean up their base. That was so close to just being lights out.
When they went into the base, you could tell, like, I think they were a bit surprised perhaps they got as far as they did because it just started getting chaotic. Max Green actually used Crucible, and I believe it blocked the Atlas, so Chicken was able to get off even more damage, but once again, Zio, he's just not really getting to Chicken in these team fights. If Chicken didn't have armor, if he had another offensive item, that would have been a game-finishing push. It looks like the way he's stacking this, he's not spending towards that metal jacket. It looks like he might be thinking for selling and going for that next item here as he stacks this gold.
Look at the way these fights are going. I mean, that's got to be the right answer. You're not actually really being pressured anymore. Vanes, for whatever reason, and I want to ask you about that actually, hasn't been able to stick to that backline in these leader fights.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially just because he's feeling the necessity of turning around and helping. He's feeling like he needs to go back. He needs to actually protect Dienzio a little bit. He just needs to tunnel vision. It's not often that you suggest this, right? But you just, if you kill Baron as quickly as possible, you can finish the game. But if you dilly-dally around, if you sit there and let him stack up, if you let T-Tigers be a huge distraction, then Chicken is still going to get those items. And we see Lucky Strike come online. The armor has been sold. He's heading into that 4th offensive.
Honestly, I think a big question here as well is, like, who's really the main damage on Immortals? I think you could make an argument as Vanes, right? Like, at this point, he's the one who's been picking up the kills. Yeah. He's been making it happen. But now he's doing a Chicken. Like, he's investing into more defense. He's not going to be able to jump in and annihilate Chicken as easily, even though Chicken is now selling his defense. Yeah. It's a chicken and egg defense offense?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, he's definitely poking the lights out of the front line, but like I think that's what he needs. Like if Vanes needs to be able to poke, he needs to get the BM stacks, and then they need to look for a hard engage, but Arden, Grumpjaw, these are two massive frontliners for this Baron pick. So Immortals, I think there's a little fear coming out about how to execute in the team fights. And right now, perhaps they're using this time to figure it out, right? They're kind of playing around the map. They're making sure they're infused, looking to finish a few items. But Hammers just has the superior positioning right now. I actually like what they're doing, clearing this vision out, being on the southern portion of Kraken. I would suggest just don't let Immortals go to the shop. Like, defend here as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very powerful strategy for controlling this area, but they do give it up.
They concede the pressure.
And that, I mean, that, to be to Immortals' credit, is to do with the wave control that they're doing here. I mean, they did actually push that one up. You've got to be a little bit careful of some kind of backdoor coming in, or maybe a full commit, just like dragging them back towards their base from Immortals, and that's going to be the portal. Chicken, he has jumped on immediately, but where's the follow-up? Dienzio is doing nothing for so long. Chicken still falling quite low here. Can Veins maybe take him down? That AoE is doing a lot of work, but is not going to be enough. Hammers, they do not find the fight they were looking for as Dienzio tries to kite backwards. T-Tigers goes down. A bold play by Immortals pans out massively. They now might be looking for the end here.
Yeah, they're going to be pushing this wave in at the very least. They're going to try to get one turret here, perhaps look to back up. Max Green can pull the wave once it comes in, but the damage is going to be here at least to take the first one. This Atlas is critical. It only hits Lyra. That's not what they needed. It needed to hit all three in order for this to actually be a turret save. They're going for more. Jackson, they want to finish
20
here.
seconds on 2 more members. I don't think Max Green can defend this one, Fuji. Hammers, they came so close. That last turret was nearly dead, but somehow it all falls apart at the last second. Immortals, they are now 1 win away from advancing to day 2. This is the 6th seed against the 3rd seed Fuji. What is going on?
Hammers, you have to stop putting so much weight into Chicken. I know he wants to prove himself. I know he wants to be the carry that you need in this tournament, but it's not happening. The last engage, he used jump jets too soon. You have to assume when the portal hits, that bulwark is coming out. He used jump jets right away, gets caught in the bulwark, and they're able to dive and kill him.
You also got to question, I think T-Tigers, he is having such an unbelievable impact on these games, even though they're losing on the Grumpjaw. What happens if he just switches it up, plays a Koshka, plays the thing which is going to carry, rather than the thing which is going to back up your carry? This comp, at the very least, we cannot possibly be seeing it 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, it's just, mistakes are way too valuable for the opposing team with this Baron Grumpjaw. If you don't execute completely with, like, perfection in the late game, you just go down. So we're never going to see Koshka, by the way. There's no way she's getting through the draft. She's never going to get into T-Tiger's hands. And, you know, this is Suijay saying, if we take the early oppressive aggression down on like a Koshka, if we keep these picks away from T-Tigers, he's not going to be able to carry hard enough, and Zio will carry the late game, and that's what's happening game after game.
All right, well, there could only be 1 more game in this series. I cannot wait to find out what our analysts have to say about that series. Let's hand it back on over to Munchables and our analysts.
Ladies and gentlemen, we may just have an upset on our hands right now. Immortals 2-0 up in this series. The 6th seed coming in and honestly looking incredible. Where do we even start? Bacon, you all wanted to talk about the compositions.
I want to talk about this Baron pick that Hammers have been running. They clearly have a lot of confidence in Chicken to be able to pick this up, but I'm very surprised to see them going back to this composition once again. During the regular season, the only time they ran Baron was running it with Koshka and Glaive as well. And they were able to end games sub 15 minutes with Baron, who is a late game hero.
Yeah.
And now that they're shaking that up, they're running this Baron without it being in that composition, which, again, that's the only time they ever took that hero, was in a specific composition, and it's just not working out. I think maybe just a little bit of too much adjustment based around the roster that they have here.
Yeah, even though Grumpjaw is super strong in the early game, he just doesn't offer the same play style as what a Koshka or a Glaive would. You've Koshka diving in, turning everyone's attention on her, trying to peel her away, or even Glaive after burning someone out of position that they can just focus and blow off. Grumpjaw, even though he's super tanky and he can frontline, Hammers or Immortals is just ignoring that and taking them down 1 by 1 and ultimately winning team fights.
Now, I want to talk about the implications of this game. I wasn't really expecting to get to a point where this is a pertinent conversation, but, you know, we kind of came in expecting that Hammers would move on and go against Team Secret, right? That's kind of the expectation from this series. But now, if Immortals wins, that totally upsets the apple cart, and suddenly we have these matchups that we weren't expecting to see at all.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. We could, assuming Immortals takes another game, they will then be facing off against G2, which leaves the winner of Tempo Storm Gankstars against Team Secret, who we don't know what to really expect out of them because they also are one of these teams that doesn't have their regular lineup that we saw throughout most of the Vainglory 8 season. And so then that leaves open the doors of possibilities for Tempo Storm or Gangstars, whichever one wins that, to possibly make it to the finals. It also even shakes up then the semifinals. It has huge implications across the board, but we have to get there first.
Yes, we do, and already Koshka and Finn banned away once again. Lyra first picked once again. This is looking very similar to what we've already seen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Hammers know that they need to make an adjustment. Hopefully we see that come later on in the draft. What they've been doing is obviously not working, and hopefully just taking away the roam that kind of scales into the late game that has synergized really well with Immortals is going to make quite the impact here.
Well, it also just means that their composition is going to be guaranteed different, at least in some way, for this game number 3. They need to perform here, again, otherwise they are going home early.
And I mean, this isn't a situation I don't think any of us expected to see Immortals 2-0 up, and Hammers, Hollywood Hammers, recently picked up a new sponsor as well. Backs against the wall, backs against the ropes right now, and Immortals winding up to deliver that final punch for the knockout. There's going to be Grumpjaw banned away though, and Glaive as well. With Koshka banned, that's a lot of the very aggressive junglers taken out of the picture.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Tigers ends up going with here. I think he's probably most likely to end up playing more of a ranged poke hero, like Kestrel or even Sam. We haven't seen too much of in North America yet, but I know that that's something that he plays incredibly well and also synergizes really well with Lyra.
Yeah, typically in this situation, throughout the season at least, T-Tigers would end up defaulting down to a pedal pick. So we could potentially see that. Sky is another one that he has a couple of games on throughout the regular season. Kestrel is not going to be available because that will be taken here by Immortals.
Yeah, and again, that Kestrel can be flexed a little bit. You would kind of anticipate the CP from the jungle, right? But you can bring that to lane as well with weapon power. So definitely a nice pickup here. And it's time for Hammers to answer back. I mean, what do you want to put with this Lyra, or is it still very much open?
It's very open. Lyra's so versatile. You can play almost anything with her because she can really help your laner be able to stay in lane and get a CS lead over your opponents. And then late game, as Flash was saying, she scales incredibly well. The utility and the healing that she provides works with just about anything. Gwen is going to be a solid pick.
Yeah, gets the reveal against the Kestrel as well, which can be crucial in those later game fights. And we're starting to see this Hammers composition start to take form now. What do you expect as the final pick here, Flash? Are we going to see some kind of tanky front line, or again, another very squishy comp?
Well, it's going to be the Sam. I know Tigers plays that incredibly well. That's what I was hoping he would play. I think that just because Samuel, when he has the empowered Malice and Verdict, he can actually compete with the range on CP Kestrel's Glimmer shots. Whether or not Immortals is going to use the CP Kestrel or flex it into weapon, we don't really know yet. But I think there's just trying to play ranged against range might be the smart option here.
And Lyra is a pick that, believe it or not, Hammers were undefeated with throughout the regular season. So this is a big power pick for them. Although it is a different player playing it, they still are going to be very familiar with the play style.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something we touched on right at the very start of the series, is like some of the power players not being in this matchup. And I mean, you guys have seen them a lot more than I have. Do these feel like different teams than what we're used to seeing?
Slightly, yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I don't know that starting Oliver necessarily prioritized Baron as much as what Chicken has here, but it's nothing too different. And then Ringo, definitely a specialty of D'Angelo, and I think that it's going to fit really well with his playstyle.
Yeah, you were mentioning the Ringo earlier on, but it's time to get into our third game of this one. Quickly, guys, who do we think has won out the draft here?
I think Hammers have the better draft, but just from what I've seen gameplay-wise, I think Immortals are going to take this.
All right.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Hammers has the better draft, but this is the point where tilt starts to set in, and I think Immortals will take it as well.
We have said that Hammers have had the better draft both of the previous games, so Immortals, they're looking... I daren't say it, they're looking like favorites on this one. We'll have to wait and see as we pass it back over to our casters.
Wow, this series has been incredible so far. You can see it with our analysts, how things are changing. Immortals look so darn good. That live buff has been applied, and they're starting to turn up the heat here, Fuji.
I mean, they're living up to the name of their brand, right? I mean, they're going up too, so it's up for Hammers. Like, the reverse sweep is all you have left. and that's a pretty big task up against a team that looks more synchronized than we had expected. I mean, honestly, the fluidity that they're playing is great, but I like what Flash X said. Like, we finally now have 2 Tigers on something that doesn't kind of fall off into the late game, that doesn't just require Chicken to carry. This Samuel can make plays all game long.
This is what I wanted after last game. I got to the point where, like, okay, Grumpjaw, yeah, you're doing some great stuff here, but you got to be able to do all the stuff, apparently. Like, T-Tigers, this is a player. They got to put him on well, rather, he has got to put his team on his back. So, heading into this final game, what are the things that Hammers really needs to execute on to start this reverse sweep in Strax?
So I think what's key here is the fact that they don't change anything in their early game. We've actually seen their early game being very successful. It's just been about the transfer of power, the transfer to the carry. And as we get into this game, like, can they continue to do that?
All right, Hammers versus Immortals, game number 3. Immortals are 1 win away from moving forward to day number 2. Hammers have their backs against the wall. Can they maybe pull this one back? Let's just get the action right underway here. I'm very curious to see how the composition from these teams plays out, because they're both playing something quite different than in our last 2 games, Fuji.
Yeah, very traditional start. I was wondering if Suijay would take the risk, since it is a Samuel jungle, of buying some early boots on Lance and rushing to the back. You can actually contest Samuel at his Treant before he kills it. It's risky, but you can see even with the 2-up lead, still playing more of that traditional, just kind of letting Kestrel do the clear, letting Samuel do the clear, sitting around the lane. So nothing too exciting going on yet. Teams are playing still a little timid, but I'm actually surprised Immortals is pressing on the gas a little more here.
Hammer's actually the one pressing the gas a little bit, with T-Tigers coming up just to land a little love tap onto Suijay. Obviously, Samuel's not really like a glaive. You know, you can't come up and afterburn someone down. It's all about getting the damage in, and that's how you kill someone. That's quite hard to do, though. Look at this again, T-Tigers going for the train every game, like clockwork.
We're seeing a little bit, I think, of the kind of inexperience from jungle here. The fact that T-Tigers was able to rotate up with Samuel's level 2, which, by the way, is one of the strongest level 2 power spikes in the entire game, he is also able to drop and take the Elder. I don't really understand why Kestrel allowed this to happen. You should never be able to apply pressure and also win in a jungle trade for minions. You should lose one or the other. So that's actually a pretty big win for Hammers. Small win, but a win nonetheless.
And that's the kind of win you need for your mentality, right? At this point in the series, when you're already struggling so much, Chicken actually taking a decent chunk of damage here. This is Crystal Kestrel, right? Like, coming up to the lane, just chunking someone down. That actually buys a lot of space for Immortals here.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have the triple poke kind of comp coming from Hammers here. So what you're going to see is constant trade balances of pressure. You're going to see Hammers come up, push the wave, push the turret, trade over their pressure. Then you're going to see Immortals do the same. A lot of this is going to come down to, like, this is all about the jungle. Suijay getting a little poke in the back. Oh, Drifting Dart comes out.
Just to shove the wave, I guess. So they really want to apply pressure to the turret. Dienzio, admittedly, has to be careful about the poke that you're talking about, but they back away.
The back away here is actually okay, because essentially what they're doing is just forcing the hand of Immortals to not be able to drop down. This allows Lyre to go back and shop. This allows T-Tigers to go down and clear his jungle. So this specific rotation pressure was a shop timing thing. And I like it. I like it because they're going to be able to get back on the map and spend their gold. Right now, T-Tigers is the only one kind of holding on to that storage. They are going to let the Elder go. A little bit of a misplay by Hammers here. That extra pressure, I think they had enough time to at least drop Max down, that they could have dropped T-Tigers down and taken the Elder.
I wonder if maybe it made more sense for T-Tigers to shop instead of taking his front Treant, because he's sitting on 1,800 gold right now. Like, this guy has so much cash, but wasn't able to actually use it to defend the Treant, whereas maybe he would have been able to do something had he gone back.
Well, he just put the withdrawal through, so taking it all out of the bank here. He's buying a couple of scouts, a couple of flares. Everyone at home in the chat, take note, vision is everyone's responsibility in Vainglory. That is your service announcement for today. So I like that, though, because Max is spending so much time in lane trying to keep the pressure applied. He's not getting a lot of time to come down, put vision down, and move that lineup. Tiger's invading on Samuel. Does he get it? He actually gets it.
Wow, that's bad news for Vaynes. He's taking so much damage. T-Tigers actually pops the boots as well. The Vaynes does get out of there. Zio trying to find some trades. He's level 3,
it's
though.
A major level
T-Tigers is level 5. That is not going to work. Vaynes going back in. What are you doing? Gets annihilated. First blood in game number 3, going the way of Hammers.
that you don't really want to use your boot active into the jungler who's 2 levels above you. I mean, I like the idea. He wants to protect his teammate, right? So respect to that kind of integrity, but sometimes you just got to cut the losses where they stand. I do think that it's Drifting Dark. This is a lot of pressure here. They're going to actually get some decent turret damage here at these early levels.
T-Tigers is executing the way that we've seen him execute in the last 2 games. He's got great pressure in the jungle. He's moving it up to the lane when required to make it happen. But let's not forget, guys, how the last 2 games have gone. Immortals just finds this moment to turn it around, even when they're down in kills, down in gold. So what does Hammers do here to actually lock in this lead in a real solid way and not lose it?
You're just going to continually see this lane pressure coming out now. They're hitting these power spikes, level 6. Oblivion can zone people off. One shot, one kill comes out. It does miss, but that's, once again, just trying to push this team back, because that's what Hammers wants to do.
Some good damage out of Vaynes, but he's got to be so careful right now. Suijay with a beautiful Githian wall to buy him some space. Vaynes stays too long, though, and gets annihilated. Dienzio does not yet have the damage to really trade back here. Vaynes twice now. That is way overextending.
I have to question if I really do think you still need to use the fountain early there, because you need to defend this turret. Kestrel's not going to be back in time. They're going to get another drifting empowered Malice and Verdict damage. Oh, they're going for damage on the heroes here instead of the turret, though.
Yeah, and they do get a lot of it, but the turret unlikely to fall. There's
Fountain goes out.
Suijay just barely able to survive that one. Did this really buy them what they were looking for, though? Because now Suijay has to back away. Dienzio is in a tough spot. Maybe Hammers just does another wave push.
Yeah, they just drop down. They get the trance, so they have energy back on, and they go back up. They look for another push. Exactly what they're going to do here.
One shot, one kill, threading the needle there. Vaynes, is he going to be able to land the damage he's looking for this time? Finds a bit on the max screen, but not enough for Immortals to really feel like they can commit. Dienzio has to go back. He's sitting on 1,000 gold with half health. This is really a war of attrition, which Hammers is winning. They are just constantly applying that pressure onto Immortals.
I think they could make it a bit more efficient by just calling the turret or calling the hero kills, but they're going for both.
Vaynes taken very low again. Oh, that was a great route coming out of Suijay. That could land 2 kills potentially for Immortals. The turret living on almost no health. Immortals, are they going to find anything off the back of this, though? That is a big question. Maybe the gold mine, maybe some jungle.
Yeah, the gold mine is definitely an easy take for them here. Everyone is ported back. They're not able to really contest this. Tigers, this is your tournament life is on the line. Your team relies on you. You cannot be the one to be making these mistakes. Like, you are the veteran. You are the one that everyone's expecting to carry. I really think Tigers should be focusing on the objective damage. Just take the turret. Take the objective. With Samuel, you gain so much control once that drops. And he's focusing a lot on hero damage, and they're just not picking up the kills. Chicken just not following up on some of these empowered Malice and Verdicts.
I would definitely like to see that priority swapped up from T-Tigers. That is the turret taken down. No, maybe he can afford to focus on the heroes in this next fight. Thankfully, that minion wave did just cross the path there of Hammers for the side of Immortals, at least. That's going to be the root coming in. Githian wall as well. Chicken thinking about turning this one around. Vaynes does get some good poke in, but Dienzio without energy, without a lot of items yet, can't keep this fight going. This has really been a thing this game, I feel like. Immortals finds this moment where, like, if Dienzio had enough gas in the tank, he could just really put pedal to the metal, but he's not quite there yet.
And what you're going to be seeing is Immortals essentially, they're looking for fighting in these drifting dark cooldown windows. It's a massive power spike for Hammers whenever that's on the ground floating, and when it's gone, Immortals does have a window to engage on it. You saw Ringo use the ultimate. They went for kind of a safe engage, nothing too committal. Kestrel shooting some glimmer shots, really trying to see if they can poke someone down far enough, but the sustain from Hammers is just way more than Immortals. So if they don't find the kill, Immortals has to back up.
What do you think about Dienzio picking up the Poison Shiv sometime soon here to deal with some of that sustain? I feel like it could be very damaging to what Hammers is trying to do here. Oh, Suijay, not going to land that impale. Just a joke poke.
Just a choke poke. Tanky enough to get out of there without taking too much damage. The Glimmer comes through. Keep your eyes on the Kestrel traps, though, because that is an instant kill, almost guaranteed if someone steps in it. I like what they're trying to do with the wave. They're pulling it up, so that way they cannot siege too much here, but this is giving some priority on the jungle. They're able to take some back camps. It looks like and get out pretty safely here.
Vaynes is doing a lot of good poke here. Max Green might be forced to pop something like a fountain if he's not careful. T-Tigers, though, that is a non-enhanced, non-drifting Dark Malice and Verdict, hitting for 219 per hit. That's obscene.
Yep.
Tigers, you've got to be careful of his positioning right now. The Impale not going to land, but so much damage on Chicken. Great Githian wall as well. Veins, if he had the energy to go in there, or the one-shot, one-kill cooldown, might have looked for more.
I don't. There was a lot of miscommunication here, though, because the double Githian stun, we saw the Glimmer shots coming out, but Zio's behind turret full health with the boot active, just porting home, looking to go perhaps buy that breaking point, get the infusion online, but you didn't need that. So Immortals missing a big window there. Perhaps they didn't think they were going to be able to get the double stun, get the Glimmers off, but Zio just not reacting fast enough to pick up on a kill there. So a little bit of a missed opportunity, but once again, the gold lead is just so minimal at this point. The teams are playing so evenly during these portions of the game.
They really are. Hammers, I like the fact that they're really pushing the tempo here. You know, they are trying to constantly aggress, constantly shove up the wave, utilize their power spikes. But Immortals is playing safely and smartly. You know, they're not allowing themselves to get put in a bad position like they were earlier with Veins. The gold lead is only about 1,000 gold for Hammers, so not an insurmountable one for Immortals to climb back into. We're only 10.5 minutes into the game. There's still a while without Kraken, so the map control not quite as critical right now for Immortals to force back into their side.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that what's really important for Hammers to do here is they need to extend the lead. It's not...
Oh, man. That's
damage.
a good engagement opportunity. Suijay wants it. Two-man Githian wall. Veins blocking out that ultimate as well. The Oblivion does not connect, but Dienzio stunned up Chicken with a great aces high. Now Dienzio got to back away. Tigers and his sustain is massive in these fights at the moment.
Hammers, I have to commend your confidence fighting in a choke point against Lance. It's going to reward you big time here as they pull this turret off, but don't go for more. We bit off too much with the Grumpjaw. You got to be careful here.
Suijay really wants that Impale, but he's in a
Zio?
rough spot. Zio trying to make the play happen. He's looking for Chicken, but the knockaway, the Githian wall buys him a second more in the Insignia. Tigers picks up a kill too. That's going to be the ace picked up for Hammers. Immortals just went a little bit too deep. Really, that Githian wall sigil moment was huge.
They just, it's coming back to bite them. I think they might be even thinking about it too much. Like that opportunity we missed, we got to get the next one. We got to force the next one. And in every game so far, Hammers has had the ailment of taking a turret and staying too long. They learned their lesson. They back up, and it actually baits Immortals into following too far. It's just not enough damage there to be able to take them out, but so much from Tigers with these drifting darks. They're placed so well. Like, guys, this guy knows his geometry. He knows his angles. He knows how to set these up. You got to be careful about fighting in those channels because perfect positioning during that last team fight.
So moments ago, 10 minutes in, I was saying, okay, gold lead's only 1,000. No biggie. Right, but right now, Hammers is sitting at a 3,000, 4,000 gold lead.
Funny.
That's huge. All of a sudden, right, that's 3 kills in a turret. Wham.
Wham, bam. I mean, the whole thing is the fact that you're able to see, and we just said Hammers needs to increase this gold lead. Max Green, you're getting rooted, buddy. Better be careful down there. You're by yourself a little bit. Oblivion used defensively. Pretty big cooldown. Not super mission critical for the win condition for Hammers. They use it just to make sure we get killed off. I like it. I like it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, if Immortals were maybe a bit closer to Suijay there, maybe you see the engage on a max screen, but I like that they didn't try and force that one. Tigers playing it safe as well with the Oblivion disengage. Both of these teams know that this game is so critical, and I think you can see the change in their attitude, right? Like, if Immortals wins one more, what happens? You know, massive upset, 3-0 upset. If Hammers wins one more, suddenly Immortals is like, man, we got to play another game after we played our hearts out this many times. That's how reverse sweeps begin. Gold Miner not going to be stolen by that one shot. Suijay thinking about it as well. Dienzio does not find the kill. Suijay now needing to back away, though. Max Green in pursuit. Just going to scare Immortals back into their side of the map.
The scout trap that was actually next to Goldmine had been there for probably about 7 minutes in this game, so that vision was actually giving Immortals a lot of information. You can see a little bit of suffering on Hammers right now in the shot calling department, probably a bit more used to obviously starting making a lot of these objective calls with Tigers, so standing Goldmine for that long, not the most efficient way to play when you have the first and second turret down. You need to be making these objective plays, you need to be rotating the front jungle and your jungle, extend the gold lead. You don't want it to remain the same for minutes on end.
I've got to agree with you. 5 kills to 1 right now. Hammers are continuing to apply that pressure to Immortals. What can Immortals do? Where is their opening in this game? We haven't talked a lot about the scaling of these compositions. In the past games, it was pretty obvious with the Scarf, with the Baron. Those heroes write the story themselves. But here, with this Crystal Kestrel and the Ringo, what happens if Immortals cannot do something sooner than later?
Well, one of the big issues with Immortals compositions, when you draft a CP Kestrel, you're actually looking to take over the early game by quite a bit. You're looking to get a first turret, get the lead. So Kestrel actually struggles pretty heavily because, once again, it's triple range from Hammers. They're not really looking to walk into any of your traps. If you get too far away, they're just going to wait for the next drifting. Flashjack said it perfectly on the desk. You can contest Glimmer Shot range with Empowered Malice and Verdicts. They're going to go far. They're going to do a ton of damage. And because you have a gold lead, you have to respect that. Missed the camouflage there by just a second, though. So they're looking for it, but not really finding anything.
1 shot, 1 kill, not going to connect. It's not quite down to that 20-second cooldown you can see a bit later into the game, but still 30-ish, pretty reasonable for Veins on Immortals. That's some nice poke coming out. There's the Hell's Brew as well. Githian Wall actually forcing T-Tigers into the back line here. Veins wants to go for that duel. It's so close, but the reflex block keeps T-Tigers in it. D'Enzio, Principal Arcanum does not take him down. He needs to get out of here, but the portal is going to lock the kill up. Suijay trying to run away from T-Tigers here, going to be a tough task, especially with that Frostburn. The Sentry wants to help his buddy out, but Suijay going to be going down. It is another ace for Hammers. This fight so much closer than a couple of those other ones, though. Hammers got to make some plays here.
I mean, this was such a great team fight, specifically from T-Tigers. Drifting dark, stay close to your heart, right, Jackson? You've got to stay in it, man. You can't leave it. That's your win condition when you drop it out there. You've got to stay with it. And we saw, even with the Githian Wall, even with all the pressure to keep him out of it, he hit his boots and he ran with it. That's super critical. That changed everything, and it lets them open up this map by getting the Kraken. 1 shot, pretty much guaranteed to miss with the body blocks here, but you got to give it to him. Go for it. You got to try, because the siege pressure now coming from Hammers is going to be intense with this Samuel and this Lyra and Gwen.
Also, I was talking about sustain earlier from Samuel. He's actually got an Eve now. That was his pickup after the Kraken. That's huge. D'Enzio does find his Tyrants and an Infusion, which is a lot more damage, and Veins actually invests in the second Shatterglass. That's an interesting build path.
I definitely think right now they're just trying to upload as much damage and hope to get a catch with an active camo. 3 turrets are down. With this type of composition played cleanly, Hammers should be able to finish with this push. They do not have a lot of Kraken damage on the side of Immortals. They can't split it. They can't do damage to everyone. They can only choose the objective or the heroes. So this could be the game-ending push.
I feel like Immortals, you just got to try and kill T-Tigers real quick here. Max Screen might be the target, actually. Look at the damage coming through Chicken.
1 shot.
1 shot, but D'Enzio needs to back away. Great Oblivion splitting the fight from T-Tigers.
Tigers
Veins wants something here. The fountain pot, but D'Enzio was out of range of that fountain. Going back in is not going to work. Portal across. Veins jumped on by Hammers. He wants it. He finds T-Tigers, but look at this. Kraken and Chicken pushing onto the Crystal here. Veins is not going to be able to take him down. Hammers keep their series alive against Immortals. This upset is not going to happen just yet, Fuji.
We have this series on our hands. The potential for a reverse sweep in Hammer's eyes is real, and Immortals having to go back to the drawing board and thinking, in that draft, we took so much away from T-Tigers. The Koshka was taken, the Glaive was banned, the Grubjaw was banned. We took Kestrel. Samuel, he performed. He showed once you get 2 carries on Hammers, these guys can execute.
Honestly, though, Immortals kind of pushed T-Tigers onto the kind of hero we wanted to see him on. Like, you took away the things that he uses to really make Chicken the star player on that team. You forced him to just say to himself, all right, I'll do it. I'll start carrying. And then he really did. I mean, T-Tigers had a great game. I do think you can look at some early game mistakes, right? Like Veins dying twice quite quickly when he was actually in his prime in the game. You know, you talk about Crystal Kestrel early on. That's a tough spot to be in.
It is. But I love the fact that they put this kind of rotational pressure on the T-Tigers. If you can't invade, if you can't control the jungle, control the lane.
All right, well, let's hand it back on over to our analyst desk and figure out what is going to be happening in our next game of the series.
I can. Oh,
I can hear me.
There we go. I think
Welcome back to the caster desk, ladies and gentlemen. We're having some technical difficulties over on the analyst desk, so we're just going to do what we used to do when I was hosting the Vainglory 8 and you were analyst. We're just going to do the analysis over here. Those were the days. They were fun days. But today is another very fun day, a very big day for these teams. Hammers versus Immortals. Immortals currently leading the series 2-1. They only need one more win to progress. On the other hand of this one, Hammers just picked up a game that could be very big in shifting the momentum of the series, trying to make that reverse sweep happen.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this. Like, really strategically, you want Hammers to be able to push so much more of that carry potential onto T-Tigers. Like, Chicken, he's a great carry when they need him to be, but he's a great carry on these early mid-game pressure. Don't put him in a late-game scaling carry against Dienzio. That's where Dienzio shines. That's where he wants to be.
It really is, and Dienzio has shown really an incredible performance this series so far. I think you know that you've got to shut him down, and I'm not sure in lane is a place to do that coming out of Hammers. On the flip side, though, let's talk about what was so different in that last game on the side of Immortals, because it wasn't just Hammers changing up their game plan. Immortals also went for something a bit different. It did not work nearly as well.
Yeah, I think it was pretty risky picking. They take the Kestrel because I think they know it's a big denial pick. They don't want to see T-Tigers on this Kestrel. It's a lot of pressure, perhaps thinking Samuel was lesser of a risk, but Vane's just not looking very practiced up on this hero, not really hitting the mark. Kestrel, you got to be making those early game plays, those early game rotations, and he played a little bit too traditionally, a little bit too, and like we saw him, he gave away the first Elder for free. That you can't do that. You have to contest as a Kestrel.
I do feel like some of what has happened in the series bled into that third game for Vanes, though, right? Like, Vanes was super shut down in the jungle early on, both of the first two games. He got his Treant stolen away real early on. He was not able to farm properly. When you head into game number 3, even though you're on a strong pick, even though you're on a pick that can maybe contest that Samuel, how are you feeling mentally, right? Like, you're not in a position where you're saying to yourself, man, I can beat T-Tigers this time around when you just lost twice in a row.
It's tough, especially when you lose at level 2 and 3, your early mid-Treant, and all of a sudden it leads to first blood. I mean, that's not supposed to happen against the Kestrel. Being invaded by a Samuel and getting it stolen, like the last hitting prowess there needs to be higher. Those glimmer shots, they're made to secure last hits. So you cannot be letting Samuel take your farm and invade you. T-Tigers was flexing in a big way that game, saying, hey, I'm going to carry this time. This is what we're capable of.
You got to talk about maybe some of the emotional impact here on the other side, too. For Hammers, having that confidence boost of a game 3 has got to be massive. Back during the Vainglory 8 season, a lot of our narrative around Hammers as a team, and of course Starting was playing on that lineup, was this is kind of an emotional team. This is a team that's kind of inconsistent, and they fixed that later on. But that inconsistency can be a good thing, too, right? Like, if you have two rough performances and you perform really well, you're not going to hold those bad ones necessarily moving forward. But guys, we're into the draft for game number 4, Immortals versus Hammers. First things first, Koshka ban coming out of Immortals. That makes so much sense against T-Tigers. It's an obvious ban at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one on Immortals that can play Koshka at the level that's needed for this NA battle, and you just can't give it to T-Tigers. Koshka's never going to see the light of day. Immortals will always ban it first on both sides. Like, this is just not something they're willing to give over, and I think it's the smartest thing they can do for a first ban. T-Tigers will literally just take over the entire game with the pick. They get rid of Glaive, though, because, and this is smart, right? Glaive poses so much of a gank threat to the lane because Chicken's kind of flexing into this position. It takes the pressure off of him. We saw first game was a bit rough, second game a little less rough with the Glaive absent, but with the third game there was no pick potential, and that really allowed the Chicken to have a bigger impact on the game.
All right, Lyra first pick for Immortals. Lyra's been very impactful in this series so far, so I like that they are going for it. It shut down Grumpjaw earlier on. In this most recent game, it was very effective at controlling some of these fights. So Hammers now have to answer. They've been dealing with Lyra a lot this series already. What do you think their pick is going to be?
I definitely think Hammers is trying to formulate something at this point that's going, yeah, they're going to just, at this point, say, Tigers, what do you want to play? Like, let us know what we can put you on that's going to allow you to execute. And what's even better is when you do something like a first pick Kestrel, it's still a flex pick. It can be the CP Kestrel, but the reason why you pick this up here is because it allows you to definitively go against whatever pressure might come out of Lyra. So now Hammers' thoughts are, we need to make sure we can get through the early game in somewhat of an easy fashion. It's where we control the game, and as long as Immortals can't scale, it's going to be tough. But we have to be careful. Scarf can come out. That's still something that works extremely well with Lyra, especially in the new patch. Hammers doesn't really seem to have an answer for that pick. So Immortals, I think, could lean towards that.
Lance Ban's quite interesting here coming out of Immortals. What are they afraid of with that one?
I think it's just about the double lockdown potential where you're able to get impales onto the Kestrel traps. And if we saw last game, Immortals missed a couple of major opportunities with the combo that you can have with Lance Kestrel. I don't think those same misses come through with T-Tigers driving that specific vehicle. So I think it's smart just to not have that type of early game disruption. And once again, you just see a big focus on early game. Koshka ban, Lance ban, pretty intense.
All right, the Fortress pickup here. This is a pick that early on, especially in the Vainglory 8 season, we became very familiar with from Hammers. We've talked about them as an aggressive team, one that likes to push the tempo. They've been doing it in this series, but with a Fortress, they've got more capacity to do that than ever before, really.
Yeah, I actually think that Fortress into Lyra traditionally has always been a very strong pick. Obviously, the bleed is really cutting down with the Mortal Wound there, the ability to heal with Sigil. And because you have to stand in Sigil, it's been a number of patches since you were able to pop it and get so much heal. Fortress keeps you on the move. You can't stay still for too long. Hammers did tell us, though, they have a Fortress draft prepared when they feel like their backs are against the wall. They really want to push forward, and it looks like they're bringing it out here.
They are indeed. Immortals now bringing up the Grumpjaw that did not work so well for Hammers 2 games in a row. They've got the Lyra. That is big. That is absolutely
Zeo
huge.
comps coming in, this last pick. It's going to be, I would imagine, a late game scaling hero. Grumpjaw, Lyra, that's a huge front line. It's something like a Scarf, once again, could be a big pick here for them, mainly just because Hammers doesn't have the answer.
I agree. They've got to find something pretty special to deal with that. I love the Grumpjaw Lyra synergy, even just in a vacuum, though, because if you portal in, suddenly you're point-blank range for your ultimate. It's really hard to block that with the Grumpjaw.
There it is.
Scarf, exactly like you were saying. Hammers, the onus is on them. What can they figure out in this position?
So the big thing here is that Hammers has to make a decision, and they don't have a lot of time to do it because it's either, okay, here it is Vox. And what I was going to say is they have to go all into the early game, or they have to do something really off-meta that they haven't practiced to kind of fill that late-game void with the Scarf. So they go Vox. It's really, once again, all about Tigers coming in, taking over the early and mid-game. But once again, with Kestrel, if you get the lead, unlike Grumpjaw, you can continue into that late game applying pressure.
I think this is interesting because I think on paper, right, I'm looking at Immortals draft and I'm saying this is great for them. This is absolutely huge. But I do think there is this X factor with the side of Hammers where they've gotten picks that just work for them, right? Like getting that Kestrel onto T-Tigers. We had that poll on Twitter after Vainglory 8 the other week. We were like, who is the best Kestrel player? And T-Tigers was solidly on that list. Very strong popularity there. He is a great playmaker. He can do that this game. I would almost like to see some backup coming out of his captain, right? Like, help facilitate T-Tigers' plays.
Well, and one of the things, too, is that Fortress, if he goes in and gets the bleed down, like, T-Tiger's accuracy on Kestrel has always been phenomenal. So we're talking about some quick damage up front, popping these bleed stacks.
The count is basic, so it really does work well together.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good synergy, but it's just a matter of, like Max Green. Like, we haven't talked about him a lot, right, in this matchup. A lot of attention being put on Chicken, a lot of attention being put on T-Tigers, but Max Green, like, he has actually been a steady, solid captain for this team, stepping in, taking over his first time on stage. So Hammer's actually doing pretty well with some of these engages he's providing. It looks like the nerves are shaken off. And when you're playing Fortress, you can't be nervous. You've got to own the game. You can't let it slip because your comeback potential, you got a level 6 ultimate, maybe level 9, but if you don't grab a hold of the game by then, that's your series.
I've got to agree, and I like the fact that you're bringing up Max Green here because we were talking before the series when we were doing our prep. We were both thinking Max Green could be a really big deal here. I don't think we've seen that from him. I don't think he's quite made those plays happen yet.
He's your steady Eddie right now, right? Yeah.
But he can definitely make that step. Let's get on to the Halcyon Fold, though, ladies and gentlemen. Hammers have begun a potential reverse sweep against Immortals. Immortals really want to close this game out right here, right now, not move forward to that final 5th game of the series. Fuji, let's kick things off.
Let's dive right in. It is going to be the weapon Grumpjaw. Once again, Sui Generis taking this up. He did say if he plays Grumpjaw, self-quoted, I have a wonderful Grumpjaw, I believe is what he said. He will play that, and Vaynes will go back into the captain position. So the confidence here from this team to once again swap things up when Hammers is kind of on this potential reverse is up there. But this weapon Grumpjaw, it's going to give him that early game pressure to defend against this Kestrel a bit.
Yeah, weapon Grumpjaw, tons of damage early on. Definitely able to start things off right for Immortals. I'm curious to see if he maybe goes for that banner, though, on his way to a later build, because that does give him so much objective pressure that with the attack speed buff, it can really work out.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in how this jungle, I was about to say, this jungle matchup. He's rooted. This is not good for him.
Suijay, had he not become rooted, would have been in a great position there, but T-Tigers actually picks up the Tran and gets the poke down. Suijay was trying to say, man, T-Tigers, I talk about you on the desk all the time. You're my hero on Kestrel, but I'm going to step in here. And T-Tigers are like, nah, man, I got this.
I mean, how hangry must you be after getting rooted and then taking the Elder right? Like, it's right in front of you. It's right there. It's just one hit, and then T-Tigers takes it away. Zio's going to get poked. This is going to be kind of the name of the lane game here. We're going to see damage go out and damage get healed up, but I'm more curious to see where Max is going to go. He's got a Dragon Blood contract, so Chicken can't sustain against a lot of this poke. They have to be careful.
Vaynes is doing some good damage, but Max Green might just turn this one around. They've got mortal wounds available.
Here comes
to perhaps
Tigers.
Stop Vaynes from healing as much as he'd like. T-Tigers is making his way up in stealth. Zio, oh my word. The damage is massive. The Sigil not going to do enough. First blood in game number 4 going the way of Hammers.
What a great mechanical recognition of your ability to not continue getting glimmer shots through the minion wave, because once the minion wave gets pulled, as soon as that happens, T-Tigers hits the boot active. He goes up, finishes an auto, and tries to get that last glimmer available onto Vaynes for just a little bit of extra damage. This guy's on fire right now. This is the mechanics you actually need to take a game, especially when you're the one they're counting on.
All right, Suijay picking up a Treant for Immortals. That is a good situation for them. He nearly got to this game already. So really, you're seeing Grumpjaw. This is one of his powers, right? Like, great objective control in that early game. But vision-wise, it's not quite there for Immortals to stop Zio from getting taken down in these ganks.
I mean, the trade here for them is that they're actually able to pick up the Elder. Yes, they lose first blood. That is definitely the bigger win, but at least Suijay goes down, notices, I got to take something. T-Tigers looking for a little action here.
Oh, Zio could be in a bad spot again. Is this time able to get closer to his turret? And Suijay might want to turn things around, actually jumping in. Does not land that dash, though, so Chicken backs away safely, and T-Tiger's just going to go shop.
It seems to me a little bit more like Immortals is playing this Grumpjaw is it's kind of just an insurance policy. It's like, we'll have a weapon Grumpjaw, we'll contest a bit in the early game if we can, but our goal is to get the late game. And our goal is just to get this Scarf, all the items he needs, but they're not going to really have a lot of success contesting against T-Tigers. Their rotation timing, though, pretty good. They get the Elder there for free.
To be honest, I mean, this is not that dissimilar to the way in which Immortals and Suijay played Glaive in game number 1. They didn't make that many proactive plays, and most of the ones that they did make did not go that well. They were mostly using him to protect Scarf. So I think this is like kind of a better version of that in terms of the strategic niche that they're trying to fill in the comp.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And now that 4 minutes has hit the map, deep invade potential kind of gone away. We didn't really see T-Tigers focus on that too much. You can tell he's leaning more towards the lane. He wants to make sure Chicken gets these items, that Chicken's able to get in a position where he can successfully carry from the mid game. But Hammers needs to start putting some moves on. They need to start stealing some jungle. They need to make sure these guys are at their turret, because this Fortress pick, once the game continues to go on and on, Lyra's portal, her bulwark, it's going to keep everyone away from this Scarf on the back line, and that's dangerous for Hammers.
What do you think about this build coming in from Suijay? He went for a tension bow quite early here. I think that kind of says to me that what we were saying about the way they want to use it, maybe not quite right.
It's a little bit of a loss leader for them, right? What I mean by that is it's the fact you get the tension bow early, because even though late game you're going to be mostly a distraction, you still do so much burst damage. So if someone oversteps as Hammers, it's just a deterrent. We talked about this earlier. Sometimes tension bow just does enough damage to keep people from actually pushing further in. So maybe not the most popular way to use the item, but Suijay, he's got a list of things he wants to build, and he just checked the first one off.
Not surprised that he's going for that loss leader tactic. He did study business, so Suijay
there you go.
knows what he's up to here. On the other side, though, Hammers certainly have been studying their opponents. know what they need to do against this comp, I'm sure. It's just a question of executing, and it's kind of hard for them to do that right now with Max Green not having the Wolves. I think they need to try and get him level 6. He needs to stay in the gravity of his laner, try and get that experience a bit quicker.
Yeah, and the Scout Trap's going to kind of catch Immortals pump fake here, so Hammers does see it, they get out. So that Scout Trap was, that 50 gold they just popped saved them probably an objective, by the way, just simply because of what Immortals tried to do. They wanted to go down through the tri-bush. Once the flare came out, they walked far enough out of vision, waited for the flare, went back up, but because the Scout caught them, a big, big win there for Hammers. So I like the fact that they're making these proactive rotations from Immortals, though. Even with the Scarf, they're trying to put this pressure on.
Suijay wants a little bit more here. He is continuously moving up to the lane and trying to set up plays. This is honestly buying a lot of space for Dienzio. He's not doing too bad in the farm department. He's actually out farming Chicken, even though he went down earlier on. So Dienzio, strong Scarf play. We saw it in game number 1. We might see it again here. We've also got to take a moment, I think, to reflect on the importance of this series, right? Because Immortals, they had such a tough main split. They had such a tough season, but now they're coming in here with a different lineup, and they're really showing up. Hammers, on the other hand, have had this glimmer of hope in game number 3, but a very tough series overall so far, and they had a great season. If this match goes away of Immortals, if this upset happens, it really throws a lot of expectations out the window for probably the entire tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they're right on the edge, and this is just going to show that, like, even though so much faith is being put on the shoulders of T-Tigers, one individual carry can only do so much. You really need the team to come together at this level of play to be able to execute. And I have to actually question a little bit of the strategy coming out from Hammers here. T-Tigers, the amount of pressure you started with isn't really showing up right now, and you got to be careful about slowing down.
Speaking of pressure, Dienzio very nearly getting taken out. Got to be careful of that
Turret
one-shot,
damage.
one-kill. I don't see the turret surviving this one. Dienzio just back, dude. He's got to get out of here. He's got to get out of here. Hammers, they're going to get the turret. Let's just agree to that.
Yeah, so maybe, you know, as I talk about it, they actually hit the gas pedal. They put that pressure on that I wanted to see. They take the first objective, and that's what you do with Kestrel. You either get the kill or you get the objective. Fortress level 6 with the first turret down. What perfection on that timing for them. Now they have a way larger gap to safety, and if they're chasing with this Fortress ult through the jungle, it's going to take a lot longer for Immortals to reach that turret, to reach that Crystal Sentry. So I don't love the fact that they gave Immortals a free gold mine, but I can say the first turret being down, the map opened up. They can now kind of clean up some of these rotations, start looking to take away some farm.
On Max Screen, what item should go next? Because at this point, you've got your core, like your bread and butter captain items. I feel like a contraption would be a great investment here because they need to just snowball, and Vision is one of the best ways of doing that.
I think contraption is definitely a strong item. I would prefer something like an Atlas or War Treads, though, because the one thing you have to be careful about with Fortress is getting instantly killed on the front line when you go in, because Scarf actually plays really well in the Fortress. Your Spitfires stack your Broken Myth, so since you are the only front line, he does need to tank up a little bit. But I do always love the combination of War Treads and Fortress ult along with Truth with the Tooth. You really get to the target you need to.
Whoa, they are going very deep here. Immortals trying to make the play, and Dienzio somehow still alive. He trades again for Chicken. It's deja vu Fuji from game number 1. T-Tigers, he's running pretty low on energy right now. Got to be careful if the burst comes out from Suijay.
The trap!
Could be in. Oh, T-Tigers, beautiful use of the trap.
One shot!
One-shotted down, but it's not quite going to be enough to take him out. Both teams trading 2 for 2 here.
Whew, these teams are playing right on the edge of the line. Like the fact that Vox stayed in so long and Chicken was able to execute and get a lot of the damage down, specifically taking Scarf out, was pretty critical. But once again, I have to question Chicken's positioning. Just, he's always so close. He needs to be kiting on max range, kiting around these active camouflages. I want to see them set up more strategic fighting zones with Hammers, because you can. You see how effective it was. Suijay said, "Don't worry, guys, I got this." There was a trap there. They didn't know. A little hubris just to think that maybe T-Tigers hadn't put a trap there. I don't know if that was worth the risk.
Well, in any case, a fairly even trade so far. Veins does get forced back here by Hammers. Hammers with map control. What are they going to look to do with it? They've got a big wave already pushing. Maybe it's time for some pressure on the turret.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Nice. So the Candied large wave, we got Glimmer Shots coming on board. They could even ult here in 5 seconds just to try to get damage on the turret and push Immortals back.
T-Tigers found a lot of poke damage on the Veins there, but Dienzio is so quick at clearing out that minion wave, even with the candy. Veins maybe looking
The
to
trap.
pop that fountain sooner
Watch
than
out,
later. Sweetjay, he can't quite. Oh, or can he? No, he cannot get out of there. Veins has to use the portal. Chicken is quite low. I think D'Enzio wanted to maybe try and snipe him down there, but walked into the portal, got forced back. It's not a great spot for Immortals to be in. They needed to be more cohesive as a unit in that defense.
Yeah, they should be able to get damage here on the turret here. I don't really agree with Tigers doing double duty. He is pulling turret aggro. It's not necessary here. Just get the turret down, back up. I know perhaps we're seeing remnants of their older play styles because, you know, T-Tigers, he's used to getting double duty because perhaps starting would go in, but Chicken's looking more for objectives.
Oh, man.
T-Tigers.
Tigers. That's bad timing, too, because Sweetjay just came back up. You now are in the same situation you were in a second ago, rather than just playing it safe and having 3 members. Man, Hammers, they're finding some good opportunities. T-Tigers, this is what we needed him to do. 3-0-2, very different game coming out of Hammers as a result.
We're seeing a little bit of forced play, too, coming from Immortals here. Like, in the first couple of games when they had Scarf, they were completely fine playing the slow game. They only poked a little bit. They tried to find an opportunity, but if it wasn't there, they backed up. It's different this game. I feel like they feel the pressure of the potential reverse, and they're pushing too many green lights right now. They need to slow it down.
And not to mention, I mean, they're not playing against the comp they're playing against in Game 1 and 2. They're not playing against Baron and Grumpjaw and things that you can wait a while against. This is tough. This is real tough for Immortals. The mentality element, like you said, very, very important. I think Immortals just need to take a moment. Take a moment to reset yourself. You're not in critical situations here. Kraken's not on the map.
Right.
Get some vision down. Play it safe.
Yeah, we're going to see Hammers try to look for forced fights around this gold mine here to kind of bait Immortals out. War Treads is online. We have Infusions up, double Shatter Glass going on, so there's a lot of damage up front loaded from Hammers. Scarf cannot be out of position here. It is critical that Veins and Sweetjay frontline, because Scarf doesn't have the defense. D'Enzio is going all offensive. He's trying to get to this Eve.
As a result, though, Scarf does have poke damage. And as we get later into the game, you expect to see poke drop off in effectiveness because more people get defense. This time around, I feel like Immortals, if they can get vision control, if they can contest an area of the map, like, for example, around the Jungle Shop and Kraken, they can actually utilize the build that D'Enzio's gone for to stop Hammers from being able to play the slow game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the thing is, though, is what you want to do with Hammers, though, is you want to be strategic about these wave pushes. Like, they actually had a moment there where they could have stalled the wave just briefly enough, shoved it as a team, dropped with vision, and taken Goldmine. Because of Kestrel's levels and item advantage, and even Chicken and the bleed procs, just the percentage health, you can actually take the objective incredibly quickly. So I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity there. I want to see Hammers more focused on standing gold on the map. When you have the first turret down, you should be thinking about what's the next objective. And the next objective should be either Crystal Sentries, which are easy for them to kill, or go for the Gold Miner. They have War Treads. They can pop Wolves, run out, run in if they see the opportunity, but a little timid play here with the potential game going to Immortals in the end of the series.
We've seen very little priority on Crystal Sentry in this entire series. Neither team really focusing on that. It's been a lot of pressure on the lane, a lot of pressure on getting turrets as early as possible, which I think makes sense with how these players play. Like, you know, they really do tend to just try and find those openings. Typically, you're going to get those in the lane when you, for example, move up through the bush and surprise someone. So, Hammers and Immortals, things have stagnated a little bit here. We're back to a reset position. 2,000 gold lead on Hammers. Again, not insurmountable for Immortals. And they're on a bit of a timer on the side of Hammers.
Yeah, I mean, this Scarf is always a ticking time bomb when it comes to the late game, so got to be careful here, but once again, they're putting this pressure on. I like this. This is something they should be doing as frequently as possible. Just look at the free damage they're getting on turret here.
This is ridiculous. I mean, they were close to being able to commit. I think if they'd realized D'Enzio hard committed back to the Sanctuary, they might have actually just gone for that.
And they almost did, even there, using the max damage range from Kestrel, and the shield is off of the turret. You get still a lot of poke there. Immortals feeling that pressure. I do think we still, the communication, the shot calling from Hammers, though, you can tell it's a little weaker than what they'd like. They're not getting a lot of those rotations down on the Sentry. They're looking for Goldmine, though. I do like this call. It's very safe. They don't really have a big risk, and they can just back out now. They don't have to overcommit to anything.
It's always so sweet when you get that full 300 gold payout a couple of seconds before Kraken. Totally efficient. Nothing wasted.
Feels rich, man. Especially right when the Kraken pops. That's even better. But they have to be careful here. Here comes Fortress.
That's the attack of the pack. Sweetjay taken down to half health very quickly. A nice sigil does bring him back a little bit, though. T-Tigers, what can he find here? He's looking to just get those glimmer shots down as Hammers retreat. That was actually a decent amount of cooldowns popped by Hammers for not very much gain. They're getting to a point on Immortals where Suijay is pretty tanky. He's got the Aegis and some defense. There's a lot of healing. Dienzio can maybe sustain back up with an Eve too. Now Immortals are starting to be the ones to say, hey, we're going to take the fight to you.
Yeah, with Attack of the Pack on cooldown, they feel a lot safer pushing up this turret. I don't really agree with the use of that, especially since Sentry was still pretty close by. They didn't really have a good angle to come in on the fight, so they are looking to hold here, though, at the turret, so that's a good sign.
That was really dicey by Max Green. He walked up and allowed Dienzio to keep stacks on Broken Myth up when he didn't need to. As a result, the wave died super quickly, and now we've seen the back forced. Suijay actually wants to go in for a fight well. I think turret gets taken by Immortals here.
I mean, it could be, but the thing is Immortals going to focus on objective damage? They're not. We saw the same mistakes being made from Hammers earlier. Guys, go for the turret. It doesn't, like, killing the heroes, you can kill them later, right? Like, go for the objectives first.
They're chunking it for 450 damage per Spitfire. You gotta say, you need to be doing that one. Suijay eats another one-shot, though. Attack of the Pack is finally back, but it is going to be that stuff used onto Fortress. Suijay, he is so low, can't get out of there. Dienzio, can he find the turnaround? That's the Dragon's Breath channeled up, but not enough time to actually get the sustain down. Another kill coming across. Ace for Hammers. Kraken's up. 2 turrets are already down. Big team fight for them.
Huge shot call mistake from Immortals there. They even had, like, Grumpjaw got his stuff off successfully, but, like, Dienzio doesn't turn around. Like, there was a big miss there. I'm not really sure what was going on, but Suijay just went down for free. T-Tigers was at least, like, 10 yards away from the initial engage when Fortress ult came out. He had to actually catch up and run to get to the target. Grumpjaw being the only target, that seemed like an optimal scenario for Immortals. So got to question, like, what's their mental fortitude looking like when the pressure actually turns on, when the Attack of the Pack comes out. They actually looked a little shaky there, not something they looked like in the later game in games 1 and 2.
And even in Game 3, to be honest. I mean, they had their moments of doubt and stuff, but that was after things really fell apart, and things definitely have not gotten to that stage yet in Game 4 here. With the Kraken pushing, things might get out of control, though. Hammers, they're sitting at a 6,000 gold lead. They've already taken down 3 turrets. Really, Immortals, the onus is on them. You've got to defend here.
Yeah, they can't really dive Hammers because Hammers has the active camo to peel back. I want to see Attack of the Pack used for objective pushing control. Don't go for the heroes here, Hammers. Go for the turrets. You've got the poke with Kestrel. Just protect her. Let This is great. You see how much attention is being distracted from this Kraken. Just go in and out, jive back and forth.
And Dienzio's quite split here. I'm not sure that's good for Hammers, though. You can see Suijay having to back up. That's a good Dragon's Breath. Lots of broken mist stacks there. Mortal Wound stopping
going
that
in
from doing too much, though. Max Green has survived long enough that Immortals will get aced again. Hammers, this is it. This is the final game of the series. They're trying to make that reverse sweep happen, and they just might do it, Fuji. What is going on?
Only 1 game away. We talked about the fact they need to clean up a few things. They need to actually make sure that when they're using a push or an objective focus that they do it cleanly, and they're outside of a few mistakes, they're actually out objective calling Immortals, and you think it would be the opposite. Like, Suijay coming in, they're supposed to have those better rotations, and we saw it a little bit, but once again, like, focus on the objective. Shooting fireballs at the heroes, that's not what you want to do. I loved the way they played the Kraken push, though. Like that was just such a beautiful way to go in, distract them, pull back when they try to, like, stop you, and then look for that engage, and I loved the force there.
So heading into the final game, mentally, that's definitely a rough spot for Immortals to be in right now. The comp they were really confident with, the Scarf that worked so well, the Grumpjaw Suijay said himself he's really good on, did not pan. They've got to start thinking about what is up next. Let's get our analysts' thoughts on what is up next as we throw back to Munch.
And there we have it. We have a series on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. The first game is going to go the full 5 games. I mean, where do we even start with that one? What a way to end the game.
Yeah, absolutely incredible play from Hammers. Very decisive play and able to just get themselves a lead, taking advantage of this excellent draft that they came through here in game number 4.
Yeah, Tigers is finally on a hero, both last game and this game, where he can have a huge impact on the team. Rather than playing the more utility-based Grumpjaw in the first 2 games, he's on a carry now, and he's definitely stepping up to the plate. Even Chicken and Max have elevated their gameplay as well, and showing in their results.
Do we feel like maybe this is just a matter of you know, land jitters perhaps? Maybe they were a little bit nervous for the first couple of games and they've stepped up? Or do we feel like it is just the fact that T-Tigers is being given these heroes that he can really hard carry the game on?
I think this is definitely a possibility that it was just those jitters, that nervousness. You know, we had touched on it before the series started. Max Green hasn't been on a live stage before. T-Tigers has not been on a live stage in multiple seasons. So, you know, perhaps it was just having to get over that shakiness.
Yeah.
The one thing I will give credit to is, you know, before that game number 3, we said, you know, maybe Hammers is going to be on tilt coming in this one. They're a team that has a history of going on tilt until they brought in their coach. Jason has been doing a phenomenal job with them. We still weren't sure if it was going to be able to translate here on the stage. Clearly it has, because they have not shaken at all despite going down 2 games quickly.
Yeah, Jason's super nice guy. I know that I've talked with him quite a bit. He has had a huge impact on those teams.
Yeah.
They've proven to be extremely resilient in their gameplay, and I'm really glad to see them stepping up to the plate when it mattered most.
And showing that they now have that mental fortitude to keep going in a series. And we have a replay of that game as well. I believe it's the game-winning teamfight. Flash, do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so pushing into the base with Kraken, this is typically when a team can get exposed the most. But Immortals had to do something with only 2 turrets left. I think the biggest impact in this team fight was the itemization, especially on Chicken's Poison Shiv. Just shutting down all the healing on the Eve of Harvest and all the healing from Ryla was hugely, hugely important. And I think it was just super effective in that final Kraken push.
Yeah, these last 2 games, Hammers have definitely gotten the better of the draft against Immortals, which, again, we said is very surprising.
Yeah.
You know, Suijay is always up here, always predicting exactly what his opponents are going to do and saying, okay, well, they have this hero, they should do these heroes. And, like, it's just not coming through these last couple games.
And, I mean, that's one of the things, right? We can sit back and look at these games and kind of say all of these things, but it becomes so much more difficult to implement it when you're there on the stage in front of a crowd with all of that pressure on you. Speaking of pressure, the score is 2-2. This is now essentially a best-of-1 to decide who goes packing, who goes home empty-handed. It's all on the line for these 2 teams, and it definitely feels like it's now, instead of Dienzio against Chicken, it's now Dienzio against T-Tigers.
Yeah, that was the matchup we had at the very start of the series. Those were the 2 players to watch, and it has truly become about those 2 players through and through for this final game. Which one of them is going to be comfortable? Which one of them is going to be able to make the play that matters the most?
Yeah, it's time to step up with all the pressure on the line, and I think we're going to get a really great Game 5.
All right, well, we do have another clip of that game. I believe it's a team fight where Hammers managed to get an ace early on. So, Bacon, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, I mean, this was, again, just taking advantage of their power spikes early on. Scarf does not have that sort of power early. You can see those glimmer shots just doing a lot of work and great positioning from T-Tigers towards the end of this. Both of his teammates go down. He knows he has that active camo trap, baits the Grumpjaw into it, and just gets that easy kill, and then one shot nearly taking out Veins. Would have been possibly even a quicker game if that ace comes through and they're able to accelerate the pace even further.
Yeah, so couldn't quite finish off the ace, but trading evenly, and that's kind of the story of the series so far now at this stage. 2-2. 2-2 in the fight, 2-2 in the series now. Like, well, we're going straight on into this final draft. What needs to change in this draft? How do Immortals get back on the horse? Because they're on the verge of being reverse sweeped.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously see that Hammers is perfectly comfortable putting Tigers on those utility-based heroes. Maybe Immortals just leaves those open to Hammers and see if Hammers will pick them up and try and take away the more carry-based ranged poke heroes that they see Tigers excelling on.
Yeah, well, the first 3 picks have pretty much been the same all throughout this series, and it's going to be no different here in game number 5. Lyra going over to Hammers.
Yeah, so mirroring the other games in this series with those first 3 or 2 bans and 1 pick. And now going into bonus time for this first pick. This is so important for Immortals, and we've been asking the players across the course of this tournament so far whether they prefer A or B side, and a lot of the teams have been saying this B side so that you can get these counter picks.
Yeah, B-side's great for finding counter picks. Glaive, super smart first choice by Immortals. It's something that they can easily flex in between the captain position and in the jungle, and that makes it hard for Hammers in terms of figuring out how they want to draft here.
It also takes away the Glaive Lyra combo, which is an extremely strong combo that we've seen work out already here at the Unified Championship. But does leave that Grumpjaw available. Hammers could go for the Grumpjaw Lyra, which is another combo that can be devastating.
However, T-Tigers wasn't really able to have that much of an effect on Grumpjaw. We were expecting him to come in, like, you know, tusks bearing, I suppose. But with the Kestrel banned away, that was one of the heroes he's really been able to have an impact in this series.
Yeah, it was a very smart ban from Immortals. I think what Flash was saying earlier is probably going to come through here, where they will take perhaps a ranged jungler to just take another one away from T-Tigers, but they're going to go for the Gwen instead, getting the laner for Dienzio.
So what are we expecting here from Hammers? Are we looking at a Samuel again here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I fully expect Tigers to pull out the Sam again. Chicken may play Ringo. He might play Baron. Baron, especially once he gets to level 9 and especially level 12, when he gets the additional range on his basic attacks, really can capitalize on the short range that Gwen has in the lane if they can scale that well and that long, which Lyra is really effective at.
Yeah, the one concern is then Glaive is very strong into Samuel, and it also leaves a possibility for even another counter pick to come out because of that flexibility of the Glaive.
So the Samuel will be locked in, and we'll see what that final pickup is going to be. But you have to assume at this stage that Immortals will commit to this kind of dive composition when you're against such a squishy lineup. It is going to be a Vox, and then final pick for Immortals. What are we expecting to come out?
Yeah, Vox is a little bit interesting. He does have the shorter range. He's actually even shorter range than what Gwen is. Immortals can easily flex the Glaive however they want to. They can put it CP cooldown Glaive in the jungle or go with a lot safer roam. I think even a Finn could work really well right here. Finn is super effective at body blocking for Samuel.
Immortals did ban away the Finn though, so that's going to be
there
taken
you go.
out of the tape. Yeah, it's been banned every game this series, so we don't get to see him come into play.
Yeah, I think it is going to be the CP cooldown utility Glaive, just because, one, you're going to be wanting to set up the Gwen as much as possible, and two, you want those afterburns all the time so that you can make sure Samuel is never comfortable in his drifting dark.
Absolutely. Well, the Fortress definitely going to play into going straight on towards that backline. But final time today, guys. What are we thinking when it comes to this draft?
Immortals as a roster are very comfortable with the Fortress. It's a pick that they have played historically a lot, even on other organizations. These players individually have run it. I think these comfort picks for them are going to be able to take this.
Yeah, obviously Immortals having the comfort picks, but Hammers has the momentum going into this. I think that they feel extremely confident, and with Tigers on another carry hero, I got to give it over to Hammers.
All right, so we have a split desk on this one for the first time this series. We'll see what the casters think as we pass it over.
Game number 5 of this series. Man, this is going to be straight fire. I don't think anyone was expecting this series to go the way it has. I expected it to be close, but like you were telling me between games there, Fuji, you thought it'd be close for like a game or two and then one team would run away with it. It's gone the full distance. This is basically a best of one at this point. This is the only game that matters.
This is all you showed up to play, right? You just come to play one game. Everything else is in the past. It's all on the line here, and then perhaps starting with the type of draft I would have preferred Hammers to start with. We see, T-Tigers once again on a carry, not a protective style jungler. So really hype around this, but as Flash X mentioned on the desk, Vox has a bit of struggle when it comes into the composition. So once again, T-Tigers is going to need to go hit the gym real quick before the game starts, really get those muscles bulked up, because a lot is on his back.
Man, this has got to be a really stressful game for these teams. If you lose this, you guys are out. But ladies and gentlemen, we are on to the Halcyon Fold for game number 5 of Hammers versus Immortals. This is going to be a great one. Immortals and Hammers both looking to move forward to day number 2. Try and contest some of the teams from Europe, but right now they've got to deal with their own region first. Veins getting invaded upon immediately. Hammers with an interesting opening here.
Yeah, I mean, Hammers is looking not only to move forward and contest in the region, but do the same in this game as they take the mid-treant away. That's actually a pretty big takeaway. You don't really want to lose any of your jungle this early uncontested, especially considering the fact Immortals started the backs with both of their carry and jungler. There's no potential for counter invade here, so really good clean start by Hammers. I like the strategic thought in these first 60 seconds.
I don't think it's. I think it was emotional. I think T-Tires was like, look, I keep having to wait a couple of minutes to take this Treant. I want to take him down immediately.
Let's just
Back me up, guys.
Let's just speed things up, right? Like, we want to get this win. We want to get to day 2. So the best way to do that is by taking away some farm right in the early game, denying some of that experience over to Suijay. And it is going to be, once again, Suijay on this glaive. So here we go.
Oh, that's going to be the knockback. It's actually on to Chicken. Some good damage coming out. Suijay! Oh, no! It backfired. That was not a good situation for Immortals. First blood going to Hammers in game number 5.
Oh man, going for the risky counter gank play where you come around through the other side of the tri-bush. I love this play. Don't get me wrong, I think it's amazing. We actually saw it crafted pretty frequently over in East Asia in the past where you kind of bait out the gank to the opposite side, but you can't die for it. You gotta find the right target. I'm not actually even sure if Vox was the right one when Lyra was a little bit easier to pick.
So to be honest, I think the right play there was to bail, right? Because the reason I think he didn't go for Lyra is because he thought that the Bright Bulwark was going to stop him from getting on top of it. He just wanted to like go all the way through. And at that point, if you're not going to go for the close target, if you're not going to go for the target that your team is set up to follow you on, it's not going to pan. Even if he didn't die there, that was never going to be a kill. They were too far away from Chicken there.
Yeah, I mean, you could see when the boot active went off that Suijay had an idea in mind, but they just weren't able to collectively collapse on the target, deal enough damage. So that first blood going over, that's not what you want. It does go over to max screen, so perhaps, you know, the lesser of all evils for Immortals is that the captain does get it, but that does mean perhaps a quicker fountain, so that means we can see a little bit more action coming out of Hammers with this Samuel, and we're going to start seeing a lot of rotations coming through once the 3.5 minute to 4 minute mark comes online.
And you know that Immortals wants to fight kind of early, so to be honest, getting that fountain earlier on Hammers could be a big deal. Dianzio, he's picked up 2 minion candies early on here. What do you think about that, Fuji?
I mean, this is essentially just a stylistic play when you know you're against a Samuel and a Lyra. It's the easiest way when your wave stacks up to just make sure they can't push you too hard. Or if they do try to push you, your minion wave does as much return damage as possible. Samuel, once again, levels 2, 3, 4, has insane lane push potential. He isn't really using it right now. They're actually wanting T-Tigers to do a little bit more focus on taking this Elder away than coming to lane, but we're getting our first potential major rotation coming out of Hammers right now.
T-Tigers beginning to make his way up, as Fuji was just mentioning. He does reveal his position to Veins by throwing out that Malice and Verdict. Here comes the push, though. Immediately a minion candy from Dianzio to shut this down.
Yep, Drifting Dart comes through. Going to be able to get a little bit of free damage here. They're choosing to just push the heroes off of the turret so they can drop down, see if they can clear any vision out here. But I do like, what I would say, is specifically the fact that they didn't commit too hard to the rotation because they didn't know where Glaive was. They haven't really shopped yet. They haven't put vision down. So Hammers was in this spot where it's like, we can push, we can possibly look for turret damage, but because Suijay is nowhere to be found, they play the safer card, they wait for the wave to crash, and then they drop.
All right, Tension Bow pickups on 2 of Immortals members, both Suijay and Dianzio going for that one. If they collaborate, and if they find the same target, that's going to be a pretty ridiculous amount of burst damage. That being said, though, Hammers, they're not splitting up a lot. They're not giving many windows to Immortals to make that happen.
Yeah, I think we need to lean into this a lot because this is the first time that I think we've seen all tournament, and perhaps at this patch, even this kind of double Tension Bow start. Here we go.
Here we go. T-Tigers, look at that damage. They're trying to shut down that carry immediately, but
sustain.
it's still alive. So much damage coming in. Malice and Verdict, Drifting Dark. It is going to be a trade to kick things off here. But man, if you can't kill a squishy Samuel with 2 Tension Bows immediately, that's a bad spot to be in.
But why go for the highest level opponent on the enemy team? Like, you got 2 Tension Bows, you will kill Chicken, or perhaps you'll kill Max much quicker, and the fact that just level disadvantages are worth much more than an item advantage. If you've got a specific target in mind, make sure it's the lowest level because your chances of killing them are far, far greater.
All right, Vane's got to back up here as Max Screen and Hammers move forward a little bit. They got to be careful not to go too deep, though. The Oblivion, great from T-Tigers. His control in this game is already very evident.
Yeah, we see the Oblivion come down. We also see the Bulwark, so there's no afterburns coming out, so that zone of protection's good. Chicken, got to be careful here as they do rotate up. Good scout trap vision, going to allow them to stay safe, but whew, this double tension bow. Chicken has to be a little bit nervous in this lane position. He's very susceptible to getting picked, being one of the lower levels on the map right now, so Immortals looking to push this turret here, but once again, we do have Samuel, so they can quick push this wave back. Immortals not really looking for anything.
There's a few level 6s still MIA on both sides, both the carry and the captain. It's a huge power spike for both teams. I mean, Max Green, he wants to be able to fire off those team fights. The silence, of course, from Chicken is huge, but Dienzio, if he gets the aces down onto any member of Hammers, they're pretty much dead.
Yeah, this is all about Immortals front-loading damage onto the right target. Scout Trap's going to spot them here, and they also have one in their tri-bush, so Immortals has a lot of pressure here. This is a time for Immortals to decide. They can go for infusions or item finishes. If they choose, it looks like some item finishes instead, but we do see it engage.
Oh, T-Tigers, he's jumped on yet again. The fountain still applies, but Immortal Wounds does stop it from doing too much work. Chicken is not level 6, cannot turn around with the silence, and Dienzio finds the kill. Immortals, with a great team fight, pick up 2 for nothing.
All right, so if you're Hammers here, there's something really specific you got to do, and it's hard, especially when it's game 5, but you've got to just sit back a little bit because these double tension bows are going to do so much work in the jungle. You're not close enough to your turret to retreat, so when they get the afterburn on Tigers there, we have more items, we've got more levels, he's going to die quicker now, so we got to be careful about that positioning, but great call by Immortals to go in on that dive. I mean, see the kind of instant deletion. They know T-Tigers is the threat. No hesitation on diving him right now.
And you know what's interesting as well? Like that play, that exact play did not work earlier, but they weren't afraid to go for it again. Like they realized that there was other things that caused it to fail.
Well, they have to go for it again because if you don't, you're missing this early game power spike, right? So I mean, with Dienzio holding Infusion, they're looking for more here.
That Bulwark was really quickly triggered there. I don't think Hammers wants to stick around at all after that.
I mean, they see the pocketed Infusion. They feel the power of the double tension bow proc coming through, so that, you know, but you can tell it's like Hammers, they went for it, and I'm sure what happened then was T-Tigers, he was like, look, we can't get caught in jungle like that again, not until we get some more items. I'm going to buy some armor. We're going to make sure we get Chicken some more late game effectiveness here, because if Hammers can make it further and further, Vox will actually play a major role in these late game team fights.
Yeah, and it's going to be really hard for Immortals in Test 2 because there's so much control in these fights coming out of Samuel and Lyra that you won't be able to get necessarily onto Chicken. Not to mention, Vox is one of those carries that defends himself really well. I mean, Silence is a great tool against what Immortals has, plus just being able to dash around and constantly reposition is huge.
Yeah, and I actually like Samuel into Fortress quite a lot. The eyes are going to have to be on Sugenaris, though, because if he doesn't knock Samuel out of his Drifting Dark, and T-Tigers is able to get a lot of those angles that he got in the earlier game, it's going to be really hard for them to get damage where they want to. So they have to be really careful about how they play their engages. It's big damage on Max Green, but Imperial Sigil thankfully heals him back up, and that's part of their win condition against this Fortress comp. And with this Gwen, you often hear a lot of teams say, if they draft a Gwen, make sure you have a healer, because she's going to, like, a healer is going to let you sustain through her burst. Immortals might look for an engage here. I would expect them to with these double tension bows.
Look at the timing here, though. Hammers just picked up a Crystal Infusion on T-Tigers as well as a Breaking Point on Chicken. Now, he hasn't hit the spike where he gets something to complement that Breaking Point, but that is still a big item for him if he can last just that little bit longer in a fight. When they're focusing T-Tigers on Immortals, you can expect Chicken to last longer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we see another gold mine going over to Immortals, so while ideally you obviously never want a big objective going over, sometimes you just have to let it happen because the condition of Immortals is early game uncontestable pressure. So Hammers has to actually just, they have to be humble and sit down, right, and bite the bullets with this type of composition because they can't give away too many kills over a gold mine contest.
I really like Suijay going for this Aftershock. He's got a lot of proc damage. That's going to be the boots popped. They want to go in here on Immortals. T-Tigers eats a lot up front, but Dienzio takes just as much back. And with that Oblivion popped, it forces Immortals' hands. Dienzio needs to get out of here, slowed up a bit by Max Green, but they're not going to pop that portal and dive the turret. It's a little bit too risky for Hammers right now.
That's such a big win for Hammers, though, because they got Fortress's ult. Like, this is a pretty big cooldown at this point in the game. Like, he doesn't have an infusion or any other cooldown in his items right now, so this could be turret.
Oh, but they're trying to turn this one
Nice
back around.
knockback.
T-Tigers knock into the turret. That's a lot of damage coming out, but the first one to fall is Sweej. They might find more. Vane's just barely able to get out of there. Hammers are getting some nice fights down right now, and between these fights, they're sustaining up so much. I mean, you got the Corrupted Genius, you got the Sigil. This is hard for Immortals. They have to win a fight in one go. Vane's, oh, the bleed damage. Tigers goes down.
That was pretty risky, but they're still going to get the turrets, so I would say it's certainly worth it at this point, but I got to question shot calling coming from Immortals here. They had to use Fountain in that lane engage, and Hammers did not. So the re-engage, they just didn't have the damage, so I think they thought, you know, Tension Bow procs, that's going to be enough to delete someone before Fountain comes out, but Sigil, Fountain, Bulwark all add up to first turret for Hammers. So this is exactly what Hammers wants. Immortals looking a little uncertain about what they're trying to do.
And that was not a terrible trade for them. Yes, they lost a player, but getting a turret's huge, obviously. The map pressure it offers is big. It forces Vanes to, you know, extend his vision in lots of different directions. You can't just put it forward, because if you ever miss position, you ever get forced back, suddenly you got a lot of darkness in the middle of the map.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that Hammers continues to open up the map. Basically, pre-12 minutes of every game, they're taking this first turret with their poke compositions. They just have to now play a clean game, and eyes on Max for how they play around these team fights right here. See, this Max, a little nervous there, playing the Bulwark early means the cooldown is unavailable. You can see Immortals sees it. They want blood. Hammers is playing a little bit passive, and I like this. That's respect.
It's a rank 2 Bulwark. The cooldown is so long. Here comes T-Tigers, though, trying to get onto the back line, looking for Dienzio as he dives onto Chicken.
Chicken
it's
gets
not
out.
quite going to be enough damage. Chicken escapes. T-Tigers is still full. Oh, Sweej! He manages to pick up the kill. Dienzio playing smartly over that wall, keeping T-Tigers interested, maybe thinking about going back in here. T-Tigers, that is so much damage going on to him. He can't sustain. Max Green, got to get out of there. Immortals makes the play happen. They find 2 kills and only give away their captain.
I have to question a little bit on Chicken there, the decision making. I know when you're close to being dead that you want to run away, you want to try to get out of there. Ooh, the play!
Oh, Dienzio!
If Max Green would have completed the second portion of his auto attack instead of moving, he actually might have gotten Dienzio there. It would have been so close, perhaps single-digit health if he did not kill him.
That is the moment in the game where I tilt off the face of the earth.
Well, if it was Weapon Lyra, you would have been all right, I think. But unfortunately, it wasn't, so we have to think about what are some ways that Hammers at this point can really make sure they take control of the game. That was a little bit of a hiccup, but nothing major was gained, so it's okay. You rinse, repeat, wash off a little bit here. Eve is online for T-Tigers, so he's going for a little more of that early game healing than damage from BM, but these guys are infusing. Now it's Hammers say it's our turn to put the pressure on.
Yeah, this is an interesting play timing-wise. There is a minute until Kraken. They've just burned these infusions ahead of that point. So perhaps if they don't find anything here, Immortals feels good about turning around and starting to put some pressure in that area. Hammers are strong at the moment, though. If Immortals miss positions, things could go very wrong.
I like the idea that they are going for gold mine here, though. Like, it's going to be some gold in their pocket, and honestly, Immortals can't contest. I mean, big mistake if Vanes were to try to jump in there. He doesn't. Once again, 294 goes over to everybody. Doesn't quite cover enough for the infusions, but they're going in.
The Bulwark is still down for 11 seconds. Sweej just jumps straight on into there. Good silence. Lands onto all 3, though. T-Tigers, he's alone. He went way too deep, trying to be the hero for Hammers. Now Max Green's getting hunted down. Sweej wants Chicken, too. Chicken doesn't have an easy way over this wall right now. This could be an ace. This is going to be an ace for Immortals. Massive, massive mispositioning there from Hammers, again with a bad Bulwark coming through. Very poorly timed. That's huge. That is absolutely huge here, Fuji.
Yeah, I can't. They just need to not get separated so easily. They have to expect the Glaive and Fortress engage to be so strong, so quick, and they're not adapting quite yet. We need to see the Bulwark and Portal used to escape. Max Green perhaps feeling the pressure in this match 5, just not really syncing up with his team. Using a lot of the actives up front to save Chicken once again because the damage is so intense. You can't do Kraken, guys. You made a play, but you chose turret, so they realize that now they're going to back up. But the thing is like, when they set up for these plays, Hammers needs to make sure 100% they are on the same cut path. Drifting Dark needs to basically be under everybody, not just Samuel.
I mean, that's just with Immortals comp being the way it is, they are run at you straight up. You know, it's very simple the way that they're going to approach. They don't have tools like the portal to sort of make it interesting. So Hammers really is the one with kind of the control in the fights. You know, they have the option to maybe split or to do an interesting portal. That means Immortals, you know, they are just trying to work around that right now, and they're able to because Hammers is not being very creative in how they approach the situation.
It's kind of interesting to actually see the Poison Shiv come online for Chicken, simply just because any healing that comes from this will be quite reduced. And while, yes, your healing is reduced from Fountain once he gets those procs on you, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of this right now, especially just with the way the game has been going, but it is going to give him that extra attack speed. He does have the infusion in his pocket. He is level 11, looking for level 12 before he pops the infusion, I imagine, but they might have a choice.
Ooh, Bulwark burned, but Suijay goes around looking for that opportunity yet again. This time, Hammers does find some nice return damage. This is going to be the Aces High. It lands. This is a big amount of damage coming down on the max screen, but the turnaround could be there. T-Tigers can't do it. Chicken, he's not going to be able to 1v3 here. Another ace from Immortals. They are in such a great position to maybe take the Kraken here.
This is back-to-back aces. They can certainly take the Kraken. Their wave isn't pushed up, so they don't have the choice of actually being able to push the turrets. So I do like the fact they go for the objective. They don't have the best sieging composition, so what you'll probably see with this Kraken push is simply just a Fortress Wolf active or attack of the pack to push them off of the second turret. The Enzio, he is going to go for it. Okay, so this is really smart, peeling off, knowing they can take the Kraken. They get the second turret.
So long as you stop Suijay from tagging.
That's right.
He was nearly going to go down there.
They got rid of the health bars right before he dies. I'm like, oh, it's so close. But yeah, so because of this actually sets him up for a great choke point kill. This should not be the end of the game, though. This only finishes here if Hammers makes a major mistake. These guys are just getting so much damage on T-Tigers. Immortals looking like they came into Game 5 with a major plan.
They did indeed. Hammers did too, but it just hasn't worked out in quite the same way. I don't think anyone would have expected the massive amount of preference on these tension bows early on from Immortals. The way they're playing their comp is really the interesting bit to me. Hammers, it's do or die right now. They got to defend. They got a sentry to maybe buy some time. It's not quite going to aggro onto the wave or to the heroes of Immortals.
Yeah, just going to let the Kraken push in on this turret here. So this should be an easy choke point. It'll be interesting to see if Immortals decides to go for more or not.
That's another Bulwark burn. Possibly Suijay could look for something here. Finds max screen, some nice damage coming out. Attack of the pack. Crucible blocking a big Oblivion there. That attempt would have been massive from T-Tigers. He doesn't have a lot of energy to keep on fighting, but Immortals are playing it very safe. Just going to back away here. They did take a decent chunk of damage.
Yeah, going for another turret or trying to finish the game here would have been an absolute disaster. So Immortals still respecting the potential damage. A lot of ultimates coming out and not landing. T-Tigers once again using the Oblivion is more of a zoning tool, perhaps, than an absolute damage killer, but he still doesn't have BM. Like, this is some... Oh, there it goes. So he just bought it. So this is actually, if Immortals isn't paying attention, this power spike from T-Tigers right now is going to be incredibly drastic. The next team fight is going to look very different as long as Hammers doesn't get caught. They don't get picked.
And also, I mean, take note of the last couple of team fights, right? Like T-Tigers, yes, he's gone down pretty early, but it's not because he was being focused first.
Yeah.
Right? It's because he's positioning it in such a way that he gets focused a little bit later on. Max Screen has been the one that's been getting focused first by Immortals. As a result, if those Broken Mist stacks begin to ramp up, very different story, like you're saying. That's where the power is going to come from.
Yeah, they have to really change their focus. I don't think Immortals have noticed yet that he's bought Broken Myth either. They might have the guess because it had been a while before an item completion, but if they haven't seen him, then this is actually a pretty big power spike if Hammers gets the jump on them. But you're right, it has to depend on who they focus on. Immortals' comp is only meant to focus on the front target or whoever you can get a pick on. So, Chicken, we haven't talked about you that much since the first couple of games, but you have to come online. When these Drifting Darks are no longer on the map, that's Vox's time to shine. You have to carry with consistent damage between cooldowns on your Samuel, or at the very least, just wait for it to be back up before you fight again.
Oh man, Hammers and Immortals, this is a stressful moment for these teams looking to move forward to the international play of day number 2. A lot of people would not have expected Hammers to make it this far into the series, but they are so close. Sorry, Immortals to make it this far into the series. They're so close to pulling out the victory here, though. And Hammers, on the other hand, got to be heartbreaking after the season that they've had to be even in this position. They've tried. Chicken! He gets so caught out. That is bad news for Hammers, but he is going to kite back pretty far. Wait for it, comes across. Good silence, but it's not going to be enough. You can see Suijay jumping onto the back line. T-Tigers is being blocked by Veins. He's not getting any Malices down, any Verdicts down. That's going to be another kill likely going to the Lyra. Immortals, can they push for the end right now? It's definitely possible with only one turret left. I don't know if Chicken can defend here.
It's only Chicken left. You can't afford to go out like that in the jungle, just eyes wide shut or something. I'm not sure what was going on, but now they're pushing for the last turret.
Oh man, Immortals, this is their opportunity to move forward against all odds. Chicken stunned into the turret. He hasn't done any damage back onto Immortals yet. The Vein Crystal is exposed. Fuji, Immortals are going to come in, make the upset real, and take down Hammers.
The live buff is real. It lives within inside the team, not just the players. These guys came and executed. Jackson, what an insane best-of-5 series. So close. It just, the plays, the strategy coming in. Immortals had something very specific, and it worked.
Suijay might have been the medicine they needed to start to make a turnaround here. For Hammers, I said it, it's got to be heartbreaking. They had such an incredible, incredible season. They came out of nowhere and really made a statement, but day one,